They are not where we expect them. Not in the jungles of the Amazon or the deserts of Africa. Not in the murky depths of distant oceans. The most dangerous creatures in our lives are not half a world away. They are closer, much closer. They move through our daily rituals like shadows slipping through cracks. A spider curled behind the curtain fold, a wasp's nest tucked beneath the eaves, a silverfish skating across the bathroom tile at midnight. These are the neighbors we never greet, the passengers we never invite, and yet they live with us unnoticed. The danger they carry is rarely loud. There's no roar or scream. It's a kind of quiet violence woven into the structure of their bodies. A venom sac here, a microbial hitchhiker there. Some are born to kill. Others do it only when frightened. But they all have one thing in common: invisibility. Not true invisibility, of course, but the kind that comes from familiarity, the blindness of routine. We don't see them because we never learned how to look. In the backyard, a single brown spider lingers beneath a flower pot. Its bite, though small, could rot skin from the inside out. A rat scurries along a fence at dusk, carrying with it the potential for plague. Not medieval, but modern, urban. In the warmth of our homes, bedbugs nest in the creases of mattresses, waiting for the stillness of sleep. We say we're alone when we turn off the lights, but that's rarely true. Perhaps it's easier this way. Easier not to think about what shares our spaces. The cockroach in the cupboard, the mosquito buzzing at dusk, the tick clinging to a pet's fur. Their presence feels mundane, even forgettable. But each one holds the story of a different kind of predator. Not the tooth and claw kind, but something quieter. Slower. Something that waits. There's a kind of haunting in how close they live. You may never see the centipede under the porch step, or the recluse in the shoe you haven't worn all season. But they're there, a breath away, a heartbeat from notice, and they're not villains. Not in the way stories want them to be. They don't plot or stalk, they don't hate. They exist, they survive. Their deadliness is not malicious. It is mechanical, evolved, written into their forms over millions of years. Lethality was never the point, it was just efficient. We built cities to keep the wild out, poured concrete over dirt, sealed windows, installed lights that glow all night long. But life always finds the seams, the small spaces where nature seeps in like moisture. There's something quietly profound about that even in our most artificial places we are never truly alone. The wild is not out there. It's here, and sometimes it bites. Even our most common rituals are not immune. Picking strawberries in the garden, beneath the leaves a spider curls tight. Opening a cereal box, the roach skitters just out of sight. Hiking in a local park, a single tick attaches no bigger than a freckle, and brings with it the echo of ancient diseases. We are never quite as separate as we believe. In many ways, these creatures are mirrors. They thrive in the same warmth, the same shelter. They hide where we relax. They follow us because to them we are just part of the landscape, a moving ecosystem trailing crumbs and warmth and moisture behind us. They don't recognize our fear. They don't need to. Their purpose is their presence. That's enough. If there's a lesson to be learned here, it isn't fear. It's awareness. A kind of quiet reverence for the hidden systems we walk through every day. We live not above nature, but within it. We are just one more species in the great tangle of life. Clever, yes, but still vulnerable, still porous. And as sleep begins to draw near, as lights dim and stillness takes the room, you may feel more alone than ever. But know this, you're not. You never were. There are lives built into the cracks, curled in the corners, humming behind the walls. Some deadly, some harmless, all ancient, all watching. The world we move through is shared, not just with each other, but with a million quiet witnesses. Some too small to see, some too silent to notice. And in that quiet, as night falls, the mysteries begin to stir. Not all killers bear teeth. Not all danger roars or strikes. Sometimes the deadliest things wear no expression at all. They are still. They are quiet. They are impossibly small. In the great theater of nature, the most lethal roles are not always cast in shadow and scale. Instead, they often belong to creatures that live in lace-thin shells, in translucent skin, in bodies barely visible to the human eye. Their weapons are not brute strength but chemistry. Their methods not chase but infiltration, venom, parasitism, infection. These are not accidents of nature. They are masterpieces. Venom is not madness. It is design. In the fang of a spider, in the sting of a wasp, in the barb of a fish buried beneath the sand, venom is precision. A molecular whisper that halts a heartbeat, collapses a lung, confuses the nervous system into silence, and it does so with elegance. No waste, no violence beyond what's necessary. This is how nature kills when it doesn't need to scream. Some venoms paralyze, others clot the blood until it pools and crushes from within. Still others open the gates of cells, letting chaos spill through membranes once sealed tight. Cone snails, creatures no larger than a thumb. Fire harpoons of neurotoxins so fast even the human blink arrives too late. The blue-ringed octopus glows with celestial beauty, yet carries enough tetrodotoxin to silence dozens of lives, and does so without a sound. But venom is only one path. There are others just as quiet, more insidious. The parasite does not strike. It waits. It weaves its life into another's. It wears its host like a coat. Not all kill. Many merely take. A little warmth, a little blood, a little freedom. But some are not so gentle. Some rewrite the rules from inside. Toxoplasma gondii, a single-celled parasite, enters the brain of a rat and erases its fear of cats. The rat, now unafraid, moves boldly into danger, into the mouth of the very creature the parasite needs to complete its life cycle. The rat doesn't know, the cat doesn't care, but the parasite, it succeeds. Not through force but suggestion, not through death but design. There are worms that crawl into the eyes of children. There are flukes that force ants to climb blades of grass at dawn and cling there, unmoving, waiting to be eaten by grazing cattle. The ant, possessed but alive, acts without understanding, and the parasite watches its story unfold. To study these creatures is not to recoil, it is to marvel. Evolution did not create monsters. It created solutions. Strange, eerie, perfect solutions to the problem of survival. It is not malice that drives the assassin, but necessity. And over eons, necessity learns to whisper more effectively than it screams. We like to imagine the world as fair. That size protects us, that intelligence insulates us from threat. But nature does not flatter the large or the clever. It favors what works. And often what works is small. The assassin bug, no larger than a coin, paralyzes its prey and liquefies the insides, sipping the body like a straw. The bullet ant delivers a sting likened to walking on fire, not to kill but to remind the forest who it is. The kangaroo fish, mythologized and feared, follows the scent of urine in murky water, drawn to warmth and flow. Whether the legend is true or not, the fear it evokes is ancient and real. Even among the smallest, viruses, bacteria, prions, danger is a matter of replication, not rage. The Ebola virus dances through bloodstreams with horrific grace. Rabies rides on nerves, inching toward the brain in a journey as deliberate as it is devastating. These are not living things in the way we understand life. But they are deadly, and they are ours. part of the world we share. Yet despite all this, the tone is not terror. It cannot be. These creatures are not villains in some grand moral fable. They are consequences of a long, indifferent genius, evolution sculpting survival out of limitation. A fly may live for days, a worm may have no eyes, but both carry the blueprints of assassins. And somehow, there is beauty in that, in the way the natural world balances cost and function. In the silence of a snake coiled beneath a leaf, waiting not out of anger but instinct. In the way a mosquito becomes a vector not by choice but by role. Nothing here is personal. It simply is. We are taught to fear what we can see, the snarling dog, the slithering serpent, the growling storm. But the greater mystery is what escapes our gaze entirely. The threats too small to name, the toxins that enter through the bite of a gnat or the sting of a jellyfish, delicate as lace. These are not nightmares, they are nature, and they are always near. In the hush of night, when rooms fall quiet and breath slows, we are closer than ever to the invisible world. It presses in, not as a menace but as a presence, a reminder that life is layered and much of it lies just beyond our notice. There's a certain peace in that, a strange calm in knowing we are not alone, not fully in control, not fully apart. The killers nature made do not knock or announce themselves. They slip in, perform their role, and vanish. They are not vengeful. They are not cruel. They are simply inevitable. So let the dark deepen. Let stillness settle. And know that somewhere, in the soil, in the shadows, in the hush between moments, the hidden assassins of the world continue their quiet work. Timeless, patient, unseen. We lock the doors, we turn off the lights, we draw the curtains, fold the blankets, adjust the pillows just so. Every night we perform the rituals of safety, and we tell ourselves the world has been kept out. But comfort is not always protection. Sometimes it's the very thing that lets us forget just how thin the barrier really is. In the quiet rooms we call home, something stirs. Not loudly, not maliciously, but inevitably. A spider navigates the seam between wall and ceiling, pausing now and then, sensing the air for motion. Dust mites cling to the fibers of sheets, invisible even beneath a magnifying glass. A moth lays eggs along the inside of a wool collar, not out of malice but need. We live among them and always have. They are not out there in the wilderness, they are here. Under the couch, behind the cupboard, beneath the floorboards and inside the walls. We built our homes to keep the wild away, and yet the wild remains. Softened, perhaps, but present. The cockroach doesn't need an open door. It only needs a gap no wider than a coin. The centipede lives under the bathroom mat, slipping out only when the steam rises. The flea jumps from pet to pillow, leaving behind a bite no larger than a pinprick, but carrying echoes of something older. A plague, a fever, a cycle that never quite ends. And still we sleep. We breathe. We stretch out across mattresses made from memory foam and wrapped in soft cotton. We do not see what moves within the stitching, what walks lightly across our skin and back into the night. Most of the time, that's mercy. Awareness would only unsettle. There is something beautifully dissonant about this, that the place we feel safest is also the most biologically rich. Our homes are ecosystems. Our beds are habitats. The air inside is not sterile, it's alive. Spores drift. Insect legs brush along baseboards. Bacteria bloom inside sealed containers, quiet and unseen. And it is not unnatural. It is not wrong. It is only unexpected. In the folds of laundry, there may be a wandering spider, drawn to warmth, to fabric, to the memory of movement. In the pocket of a forgotten jacket, A silverfish might nestle, feeding on starch and shadow. On the inside lip of a faucet, bacteria flourish in damp silence, thriving in the darkness where metal meets air. They are a breath apart, always. Even the things we carry, the bags, the shoes, the coats, become vessels. A tick clings to a hem. A beetle rides inside the lining of a suitcase. Sometimes these travelers follow us from woods and fields. Other times they were already waiting, watching from the corners. We like to believe in boundaries, inside versus outside, clean versus unclean, human versus animal. But nature has never honored those lines. Life overlaps. It crosses thresholds without permission. And in doing so, it reminds us there is no true separation. A child sleeps in a crib, peaceful and still. Above, a mosquito hums near the ceiling, drawn by breath, by heat. The room is quiet but never empty. A kitchen glows under a single nightlight. Beneath the fridge, a roach adjusts to the ambient warmth, antennae moving in slow rhythm. In closets, in attics, behind sealed boxes, life continues in small, secret ways. Some of it is harmless, some of it is not, but none of it waits for acknowledgement. And yet, there's no need for panic. That's not the point. The point is awareness, soft, almost reverent, an understanding that this closeness is ancient, that we have always been this vulnerable, that our walls do not make us immune, only distant, and even that, barely. There's a strange kind of intimacy in this reality. We do not live above nature. We live inside it. We share warmth. We share oxygen. We share time. The parasites that rest in folds of carpet, the spiders in attic boxes, the mites within eyelashes. They are not foreign. They are native to our lives. They follow the rhythms of light and breath. They feed, they molt, they reproduce, and they die, often without us knowing they ever existed. It is easy to feel disturbed. But there's beauty too, a kind of invisible choreography, a shared heartbeat. And perhaps that's what makes this knowledge so powerful. Not that it's shocking, but that it's so ordinary. That the dangerous and the delicate live not on the other side of the world, but within reach, within breath. As you lie still tonight, eyes heavy, mind dimming, remember that the world continues just beyond your skin. Tiny movements, microscopic wars, wings unfurling in darkness, teeth no wider than a needlepoint. And yet, the house remains quiet. Not because nothing is there, but because what is there has always been. It has always lived beside us, beneath us, on us. And sleep comes not from shutting the world out, but from learning how to live with its presence. A breath apart. There is a silence in the forest that feels sacred. Not the absence of life, but its concealment. It hums beneath your feet, rests in the air like a held breath. The trees rise as monuments, their canopies touching light, but it is not in the height that the mystery lies. It is in what lives beneath. Lift the bark of a tree, not violently but gently, like peeling back the skin of the world, and you'll see a kingdom in miniature. Ants in file, larvae curling in wood-soft tunnels, beetles moving through damp, peeled corridors. There is no light here, no grand fanfare, but everything has purpose. Everything is part of something older than us. Under leaves, the ground moves, not with threat, but with intent. Millipedes coil and uncurl, springtails scatter like ash. Mites, unseen by most eyes, cling to soil and root and decay. This is a world built on what falls: the dropped leaf, the rotted limb, the corpse returned to earth. And inside that decay, life blooms. Not all of it is gentle. Here in the damp silence, parasites travel. Tiny worms burrow into slugs. Fungi creep into ant bodies, reshaping their behavior from the inside out. There is one, Ophiocordyceps unilateralis, A fungus so precise in its slow domination it compels its ant host to climb, to clamp its jaws onto a leaf vein and then to wait. Death comes softly, and from the ant's skull the fungus grows. Slender, dark, releasing spores into the breeze to begin again. This is not a scene of violence. It's a ritual, repeated endlessly beneath the bark and the loam, in the cool shadow of trees that have stood for centuries. Even the roots are alive in ways we do not fully understand. Beneath the surface, fungal threads, mycelium, stretch for miles, linking tree to tree in silent communion. These networks do not kill. They connect. They send nutrients, warnings, chemical messages. A forest beneath its skin is not a collection of individuals, but a conversation. And the messengers are neither bird nor mammal, but fungi, invisible, patient. The ants walk these networks too. Some harvest fungi, others serve queens, building colonies so vast they rival human cities in complexity. They farm, they fight, they scout. Leafcutter ants in particular carry slices of green back to their nests, not to eat, but to feed a cultivated fungus, one that cannot live without them. Symbiosis at its most delicate, a pact written without words. Beneath the bark, danger comes not with sound, but with stillness. A tick waiting for a warm body. A spider resting, legs tucked in a perfect radius, fangs folded like secrets. A wasp laying eggs inside the body of a caterpillar. Its young feeding slowly from within, never quite killing. Not yet. There is strategy here, not cruelty. Nature wastes nothing. Even what appears dead may be brimming with purpose. A fallen log, soft with rot, is a metropolis. Beetles carve it into homes. Moss drinks from its sponge-like surface. Salamanders sleep inside its hollows. Each crevice is occupied. Each decay a doorway. To walk through the forest without understanding this is to miss the story. It is not told in bird call or the crunch of leaves, but in the soft hush of unseen labor. The 1,000 lives making and remaking the world underfoot. And we walk over them thinking ourselves separate. But this layer beneath the surface, this skin of the world, it is not other. It is part of us. We breathe the air its fungi filter. We drink water its roots draw clean. The soil that clings to boots and coats is more than earth. It is inheritance. The killers here do not look like monsters. They wear no masks. They are threads, spores, jaws the size of sand grains. But their efficiency is absolute. A tree falls because termites hollowed it for years. A deer weakens because of a parasite the size of a hair. The balance remains, but it's never still. And when you lie in a forest on your back listening to nothing in particular, that stillness you feel is built from motion, built from the crawling, pulsing, breathing life that never quite reaches your eye. The world beneath its bark is layered in mystery, life feeding on death, death reborn in growth. It is not violent, it is not gentle, it simply is. So next time you walk among trees, think not just of their height or their age or their silence. Think of what lies beneath, of what walks where you do not, of what builds and breaks and builds again. It is there, just beneath the bark, always. They do not roar, they do not growl, they do not stalk us through forests or chase us across fields. Their movements are small, barely more than vibrations in the air or a tickle on the skin. But their history, their legacy, is soaked in blood. Mosquitoes, ticks, fleas, the quiet ones, the feeders, the carriers of silence, each no larger than a fingernail. Some so small they disappear between heartbeats, yet within them is the memory of plagues, of fever dreams, of entire cities emptied by disease. They are not predators in the traditional sense. They do not kill with fang or claw. Instead, they deliver, not mercy, not judgment, but code. Biological instructions. One life form inserted into another, a story rewritten mid-sentence. The mosquito hovers just long enough. Its hum barely registers, more suggestion than sound. But in that moment, when needle-like mouthparts press into skin, history repeats. Malaria, Zika, dengue, yellow fever, invisible passengers riding on delicate wings. Death doesn't come in a rush. It comes hours later, days, quietly. The female mosquito drinks blood not for herself, but to nourish her eggs. There's something both maternal and merciless about that. Her mouth is not one part, but six. Some to pierce, some to saw, one to sip. The act is surgical. Anesthesia is built in. We often don't feel the wound until it's already healing. Ticks are slower. There's no flight, no graceful landing. They wait, on grass, on fur, on sleeves. Their patience is astonishing. They sense the heat of breath, the weight of carbon dioxide, and when the moment comes, they climb, they latch, they feed for hours, sometimes days before dropping off, swollen and satisfied. Inside the tick, other lives wait. Borrelia burgdorferi, the bacterium that causes Lyme disease, is ancient, patient, and efficient. The bite does not burn. There is no initial wound, but the infection unfolds like fog, slowly, then all at once. The joints ache, the mind dulls, the body becomes unfamiliar. And then there are the fleas, the jumpers. Once associated with rats and plague ships, now mostly forgotten or reduced to nuisances in the minds of many. But they deserve more than annoyance. Their legacy shaped empires. The bubonic plague, born on the backs of fleas riding rats, killed tens of millions in Europe alone. A microbe named Yersinia pestis, so small it could live inside a flea's gut, changed the entire trajectory of the human story. And the flea itself, hardened, legged like a machine, able to jump the equivalent of skyscrapers in human terms, was the vessel. None of these creatures seek destruction. There is no malice in their methods. Their deadliness is incidental, a byproduct. They are, in their own strange way, perfect. Evolution favored them not for size, but for subtlety. The mosquito's ability to find blood through infrared detection. The tick's barbed mouthparts that anchor it beneath the skin. The flea's armor, near impervious to crushing. Each adapted not for terror, but for survival. And survival over time becomes impact. They exist everywhere, on every continent, in every climate, from Arctic tundra to rainforest canopy. There is no corner of the world untouched by their reach. They do not build nests, they do not sing, but they carry futures within them, for better or worse. And yet we barely notice them. A flick of the wrist, a scratch behind the knee, a swat at the air. They are interruptions more than threats, until they're not. It's the silence that unnerves, that something so small can alter a life so completely. A single bite, a moment of skin exposed, the exchange of fluids, of cells, of something ancient and unseen. What follows is not a dramatic collapse, it's a soft unraveling. There's a clinical awe in how precisely it all works, how the mosquito injects anticoagulants to keep blood flowing, how the tick secretes compounds that numb pain and suppress immune response, how the flea can flatten its body to slide through fur, feathers, cloth. Every movement calculated, every function streamlined. They are, in a sense, instruments, played by nature over and over again. And for every disease we've learned to fight, there are more waiting, carried in silence, waiting for the right season, the right storm, the right crossing of paths. The history of humanity is inseparable from them. Entire wars have been decided not by generals but by insects, troops falling not to bullets but to yellow fever and typhus. Victory carried away on wings too small to see from a distance, and still they remain. We spray, we trap, we swat, We wear repellents in close windows, but these are old creatures, older than us, their designs refined over millennia. Ours are recent, reactive, clumsy in comparison. They remind us, not violently but consistently, that dominance is fragile, that the line between comfort and collapse is not measured in armies or governments but in droplets of blood, in tiny carriers no wider than a pencil tip. As night falls and the air thickens, they move, drawn by breath, by heat, by the simple fact that we are alive. They do not hate us, they do not know us, but they are part of our world, of our history, of our sleep. And so we drift unaware or unconcerned while just beyond the veil of comfort the carriers wait, not with fanfare, not with cruelty, only silence. They do not knock, they do not announce themselves. They enter quietly, through water, through soil, through air, through food, and they stay. Not as guests, but as authors, rewriting the stories of bodies from the inside out. Parasites are not hunters. They do not chase or maul. They do not need speed or strength or teeth. What they need is access, a single opening, a vulnerable moment. And then, they become a part of you. The liver fluke begins its life in water no larger than a grain of sand. It passes from snail to fish to mammal, shape-shifting along the way until it finds what it wants, the warmth of a human host. Inside the body it migrates with purpose, through the stomach, through the intestine, and then to the liver, where it settles. It doesn't kill quickly. It drains, slowly, softly, for years, sometimes decades. This is not science fiction. It is biology, a quiet borrowing. The host continues to walk, work, sleep, unaware that something else shares the rhythm of its blood. The botfly, by contrast, chooses a more visceral path. Found in Central and South America, it lays its eggs not directly but by proxy, hitching them to a mosquito or a biting fly. When that insect feeds on a human, the warmth of the skin triggers the egg to hatch. The larva slips inside almost imperceptibly and begins to grow. It feeds on flesh, but carefully. It avoids vital tissue, it avoids pain most of the time. It wants the host to continue living, to carry it unknowingly until the day it is ready to leave. Then, from beneath the skin, it pushes out, quietly, successfully, complete. There's a wordless intelligence to it all, a strategy that feels almost sentient, though it is not. These parasites are not evil, they are not cruel, but they are precise, they are relentless. Their success depends on how invisible they can be. Cordyceps is stranger still, a fungus, not an animal. It does not infect humans, but its story is worth the telling. It begins as a spore landing on the body of an ant. Harmless at first, then it invades, not just the muscles, but the brain. The ant's behavior changes, it stops following trails, it leaves the colony, climbs, bites into the underside of a leaf and waits. And from its head, from the crown where decisions once lived, the fungus emerges. A stalk, black and narrow, releasing more spores into the air. What remains of the ant is neither corpse nor self. It is something in between, a borrowed body, a puppet stage. This is the slow terror of parasitism, not blood, not gore, but the loss of autonomy. The knowledge that something else is steering, subtly, invisibly. That what you do may not fully be yours. And it isn't just insects, it's us. Toxoplasma gondii, often spread through undercooked meat or cat feces, can make its way into the human brain. In mice, it erases fear of predators. In humans, some studies suggest it may influence risk-taking, even personality. Its presence doesn't kill, it lingers. In 1 out of 3 people on Earth, perhaps more, a silent passenger. And yet we feel whole. We feel alone in our minds. Because parasites do not announce themselves, they live best when unnoticed. They move through intestines, through blood, through lymph. Some change the shape of cells. Others lodge in the heart, the lungs, the eyes. There are worms that spiral through muscle and protozoa that settle into the space between thoughts. We treat parasites as intruders, but in truth they are part of life's design. Nearly every species on Earth hosts at least one. They are ancient, efficient, bound to us in a way few things are. And they've shaped us more than we care to admit. The immune system, for all its complexity, evolved not just to fight viruses or bacteria, but to detect and control these hidden puppeteers. To unmask the skinwalkers, to burn them out with fever, inflammation, rejection, but not always successfully. Sometimes the line blurs. Some parasites offer benefits, a balance, a trade. Certain intestinal worms, long vilified, may help regulate autoimmune conditions. In removing them entirely, we lose not just the danger, but the dialogue inside us as we sit, as we sleep, as we dream. There may be more than one heartbeat, not a literal second pulse, but something smaller, quieter, a life nestled inside a life. And as unnerving as that may sound, it is also natural. In the forests, under the sea, in the soil, within birds and foxes and frogs, this story plays out endlessly. One body serves another. One mind is shaped by an unseen guest, and the world continues, built in part on this strange intimacy. So tonight, as the hush returns and the dark grows deeper, consider the lives that move through other lives. The passengers without passports. The beings that do not kill with violence but with presence. They are not distant monsters. They are here. They are near. Perhaps inside. Perhaps always. Skinwalkers, borrowers, ancient guests. Stillness has never meant solitude. It begins with the illusion of separation. The idea that cities with their steel veins and glass bones are apart from nature, above it. Controlled, predictable, safe. But the concrete doesn't keep everything out. It only changes what gets in. Beneath the surface of the urban world, life adapts. Not the life we cultivate, not pets, parks, or curated tree, but something quieter, older, creatures that slipped in through cracks in the foundation and never left. The brown recluse spider, for example, does not announce itself. It thrives in silence. It prefers cluttered closets, cardboard boxes, the long-forgotten corners of basements. Its name is truth, recluse. But its venom tells another story, a necrotic cocktail that doesn't kill outright, but hollows flesh in silence. Not all bites turn severe. Some never even hurt. But when they do, the destruction comes slowly, like something unraveling from the inside. And still the spider remains shy. It doesn't chase. It doesn't want confrontation. But in the city, where warmth leaks from pipes and cardboard stacks high in storage units, the recluse finds refuge. The Black Widow is more iconic, more mythologized. Its red hourglass glows with the symbolism of folklore, fear, and ancient warning. But in the city it sheds myth and becomes a tenant. It builds webs and meter boxes in the dry crevices of garages and garden sheds. The web itself is messy, disorganized at a glance, but perfectly suited for snaring what wanders too close. Crickets, beetles, sometimes even lizards. And if disturbed, the widow doesn't flee. It waits. Her venom is neurotoxic, a storm within the nervous system, cramping, nausea, breath that comes too fast or too slow. Most survive. Many never even know they were bitten. But the danger is real, and it is domestic. It hides in flower pots, in playground equipment, in the unnoticed corners of our comfort. Then there are the snakes. Not the vast constrictors of jungle legend, but the smaller, humbler species, copperheads, garter snakes, rat snakes. They've learned the same lessons as we have. Cities offer shelter, warmth, abundant food, and most of all, cover. a coiled copperhead under a park bench, a rat snake sliding through alley shadows. These are not accidents. They are participants in the urban ecology, hunting rodents, nesting under porches, basking on warm asphalt as the sun rises. To them, a cracked foundation or a sewer tunnel is no different from a rock crevice or forest den. They are not invading. They're evolving, just as we have. Some, like pigeons and raccoons, wear their adaptation proudly, visible, noisy, even charming. But others wear the city like a cloak. They blend into the hum of air conditioners, the soft thud of dryer vents, the buzz of fluorescent lights. The camel spider, not truly a spider at all, sometimes rides in on shipping crates, hiding among imported goods. Its presence feels like myth, stories of screaming soldiers and melting flesh. But its real threat lies in its speed, its bite, its unexpectedness. Not lethal, but jarring, and always hidden until it's not. The recluse, the widow, the copperhead. They don't chase and they don't claim territory in the way we do, but they occupy it, slowly, persistently. Every building becomes a landscape, every wall a canyon, every attic a den. And they are not alone. Urban scorpions nest in desert-edge neighborhoods, slipping between concrete and sand. Bats roost in overpasses, stray cats carry fleas that carry bacteria. Roaches, rats, silverfish. The city pulses with life that does not pay rent but takes up residence all the same. The illusion was that our walls made us separate, that by building up and paving over we had ended the wild. But life has always known how to adapt, and often the most dangerous creatures are the ones that learn to stay just out of view. There is something elegant in that, in the way nature refuses to be excluded, in how it doesn't need to destroy our structures. It only needs to find the spaces we forgot. Behind the water heater, beneath the sink, under the porch. Even our habits feed them. The crumbs we drop, the warmth we leak, the cardboard we pile. We create the ecosystem without realizing we've done it. And in that world, danger doesn't look like a predator. It looks like stillness. A spider that hasn't moved in days. A shadow that wasn't there yesterday. A sudden pain in the dark. But not all encounters end in harm. Most of these creatures don't want confrontation. They thrive on invisibility. Their survival depends on not being noticed. And when they are, they vanish, deeper into the cracks, into the spaces between tile and time. Still, their presence reminds us that the city is not sterile, that civilization is not a wall, it is a compromise. And within that compromise, we walk beside lives designed for the wild, recalibrated, reduced in scale, but no less ancient, no less potent. When you take a shortcut through an alley, when you reach into a box in the garage, when you step barefoot onto the cold tiles at night, you are never truly alone. The city holds its secrets not in vaults but in corners, and some of those secrets are venomous. There are spaces in every home that rarely see light, spaces where dust thickens undisturbed, where footsteps echo differently, where the air carries a scent of memory and neglect. Attics, basements, crawl spaces, sheds. These are the lungs of a house, drawing in quiet things that breathe slowly and remain unseen. We visit them rarely, always with a reason, a box to retrieve, a circuit to flip, a tool to find and forget again. But we don't linger, not often, and never for long. These places don't hum with human life. They hum with something else, something older, softer, still. Beneath the floorboards, there may be coiled insulation, warped wood, a tangle of pipes and wires. But there's often more than that. Something that shares the stillness. A shape you don't notice at first. A curl of hose, a twist of cord. But then it shifts, just slightly, and you realize it's alive. Urban snakes sometimes make their dens under homes. Rat snakes, garters, copperheads, depending on the place. They come for warmth, for shelter, for prey. Mice, insects, the silent currency of the dark. They slip through gaps in stone, slither along beams, wrap themselves into knots of hidden rest. You won't hear them, you won't smell them, but they are there. Attics breathe heat in the summer, cold in the winter. They house the forgotten, dusty ornaments, abandoned toys, cracked furniture. But in the rafters, among insulation and rafters, spiders thrive. Black widows love dry, quiet corners. Brown recluses weave loose, chaotic webs and vanish into folds of fabric. Their webs are not meant to be seen. They are not decoration. They are utility. Some creatures leave signs, silverfish trails, glimmering like faint pencil lines on cardboard. Rodent droppings tucked behind storage bins. Chewed corners. Shredded insulation carried away for nests you'll never find. These are notes left in the margins, hints that the home is shared. The garden shed is its own wilderness. Tools lean like sleeping soldiers, cobwebs gather across handles and locks. Under the workbench, in the soil bags, beneath coiled hoses, life waits. Centipedes, beetles, paper wasps with delicate nests hidden in the eaves, pulsing softly with larval life. And in the darkest corners, sometimes the coil of a resting snake, or a rat motionless, sensing your presence before you even open the door. The basement is heavier. Moisture thickens the air. The walls weep faintly in winter. Pipes click and groan. It is a space that seems alive even without inhabitants. And yet it is inhabited. Mice carve secret passageways behind drywall. Bats squeeze through air vents. Mold breathes in the corners, invisible until it flowers. A scorpion in some regions can curl beneath a box of Christmas decorations, flat, silent, undisturbed for months. Its sting not fatal to most, but sharp enough to shift a mood. We do not design these places for comfort. We design them for function, for containment. But nature finds its way inside because it recognizes the same things we do: warmth, shelter, safety. The wild does not knock. It waits, and sometimes it sleeps. There's a stillness to these creatures that feels alien. The way a spider will not move for hours, even days. The way a snake conserves energy by doing almost nothing at all. The way a wasp can build a home, inch by inch, unseen, until one day the hum in the shed becomes something more. Sleep in their world is a weapon. Stillness is a strategy. Being overlooked is survival. And so we build our homes on top of theirs, or perhaps within theirs. Either way, the line is thinner than we'd like to think. Somewhere beneath your floorboards, beneath tile or wood or insulation, something sleeps. Not necessarily dangerous, not always deadly, but alive, watching, waiting for night, or warmth, or simply for time to pass. There's a kind of poetry in it, that as we chase speed and noise, so much of nature survives by waiting, by nesting in the places we forget, by coiling in the places we never check. It doesn't resist our presence. It moves around it, learns from it, makes room for itself in the walls we thought were sealed. The house is not a fortress. It is an ecosystem, and every quiet room has layers, the ones we see and the ones just beneath. There is a world that exists between the cracks, not just in wood and wall, but in the spaces between skin cells, in the breath between words, in the warmth left behind on a pillow. This world is not empty, it's teeming, and it speaks in silence. Mites live in our eyelashes. They nest at the base of follicles, invisible to the naked eye, feeding on oils and skin we no longer need. They are neither harmful nor helpful. They simply are. Passed from mother to child, from pillow to pillow, they accompany us quietly, like a memory we can't quite place. On the surface of every hand and every fold of skin, a multitude of bacteria reside. Most of them peaceful, many of them necessary. They regulate, they protect, some even communicate, and yet among them threats linger. Not with fangs, not with claws, but with patience. Staphylococcus, Clostridium, Listeria, their names sound clinical, but their presence is ancient. Not born of laboratories, but of earth, water, touch. They travel with us, through doorknobs, through cut fruit, through shared air. In most moments, they pass through unnoticed. But sometimes they linger. They take root. They change the course of things. Viruses drift like particles of dust. Influenza in a crowded train. Norovirus on a countertop. The remnants of a sneeze caught in the folds of a scarf. These aren't invaders from afar. They live in our mouths, our lungs, our cities. They evolve beside us, inside us, adapting faster than we ever can. We imagine danger as something that comes from outside, something visible, something loud. But the quiet things, the microscopic ones, are always near, closer than a whisper, closer than a thought. Even the air isn't empty, it carries spores of mold, of fungus, of life beginning again in its simplest form. Aspergillus floats in hospitals, waiting for immune systems to drop their shields. Candida clings to the gut lining, peaceful until an imbalance tips the scale. But these aren't monsters, they are passengers. Some protect, some consume, all of them are. Your skin, your eyes, your lungs, they are not closed systems, they are thresholds. They filter, they host, they negotiate. And in doing so, they keep the body in quiet conversation with everything it touches. Between the floor tiles, between toothbrush bristles, between the folds of a dish towel, life gathers. Not maliciously, not dramatically, but densely. Mites in carpets, mold in the corner where the shower never quite dries. Bacteria, thriving on the keyboard, warmed by idle fingers. These are not stories meant to frighten, they are meant to soften the borders. To remind us that we live not above nature, not even beside it, but within it. Inside every breath is a mixture of what we've made and what has always been. Dust, pollen, skin, bacteria, virus, a collection of everything that lingers between contact and forgetting. And though we spend so much effort cleaning, sealing, wiping, purifying, the world seeps in again. Not as an attack, but as return. The smallest threats don't announce themselves, they don't knock, they don't hiss, they wait. Or more often, they move constantly, in silence, too small for eyes, too old for alarm. And yet there's comfort in knowing they're not new. They've always been here, on our ancestors' skin, in the soil beneath their feet, in the air they breathed in caves, huts, cities. We are not alone, not even in our own bodies. There is a world between the cracks, and it is always moving. Still water calms the eye. It invites us to look deeper, into its mirror-like surface, its quiet edges, its promise of stillness. A pond at dusk, a puddle after rain, a swamp with no wind. These places feel hushed, patient, but they are not empty. They are not safe. In their calm, something waits. The surface may shimmer like glass. Dragonflies may skim across and frogs may croak from unseen reeds. But beneath, in the slow green water, there is a different kind of life. One that doesn't announce itself with splashes or speed, but with patience, and touch, and hunger without haste. Leeches move through this world like ribboned shadows, soft-bodied, jawless, older than language. They sense vibration, heat, the pulse beneath skin. Their mouths are not teeth, but suction, lined with microscopic blades that slice with elegance. Some inject anesthetics so the host feels nothing. Others offer anticoagulants so the blood flows freely. They do not always take much, just enough, but their presence lingers, in the memory of something clinging, feeding, leaving quietly. In certain swamps and ponds, amoebas drift like dust, invisible even under a microscope's casual glance. One, Naegleria fowleri, waits in warm, stagnant water. It's rare. But when conditions align, when someone dives, inhales sharply, sends a few droplets into the nasal passages, it awakens. This amoeba doesn't feast on flesh or blood. It targets the brain. Moving from nose to olfactory nerve, it travels inward, feeding on brain tissue as it goes. The result is swift, brutal, and almost always fatal. It does not spread. It does not leap from person to person. It only acts when conditions are perfect, and when they are, the destruction is total. And yet, the water looks still. Swamps are often described as lifeless or worse, as death itself. But they are anything but empty. They pulse with complexity. Microbial cities thrive in mud. Mosquito larvae twitch at the surface. Flatworms slide through shadows. Parasitic flukes, snails, and larvae rotate through life cycles so intricate no single host will ever witness the full story. One such fluke, Fasciola hepatica, begins in water, moves through snails, then vegetation, then into the liver of grazing animals or humans who unknowingly ingest it. It lives in secret for years, slowly consuming tissue from within. Water fleas carry parasites of their own. Microscopic passengers that jump from crustacean to fish to bird unseen. Each puddle is a web of quiet transactions, hosts, vectors, predators, all folded beneath the surface. There's no roar here, no splash of jaws. The danger in still water is never fast. It's intimate, absorbed, inhaled, sometimes chosen when a foot steps in, sometimes accidental when a drink is taken from a stream that looks too clean, too peaceful. And yet, for all their lethality, these creatures are not villains. They are products of balance, of adaptation, of time. Water shelters them, not just physically, but emotionally. It distorts our instinct to fear. We associate it with life, baptism, birth, purity, but stagnant water is different. It doesn't move. It doesn't cleanse. It holds. It waits. And in that waiting, danger finds a home. The paradox is haunting, that what looks most still may hold the deepest unrest. In some forests, the swamp is so thick with algae it appears solid, like moss you could walk across. But the moment weight is applied, it sinks, swallowing sound, footprints, and sometimes more. Beneath, snakes thread between roots. Fish with needle-like teeth wait in the dark. And always there are eggs of flies, worms, parasites, lying dormant just beneath reach. Even puddles, fleeting as they are, can harbor life. After a rainstorm, a shallow pool may last only hours. But in that time, bacteria bloom. Mosquitoes lay eggs. Protozoa double in number every few minutes. A micro-ecosystem that lives and dies before we even see it. But the risk remains. A child splashes, a dog drinks, and something transfers. Something begins. The most unsettling truth of these waters isn't just that they hold life. It's that they hold memory, an ancient memory. These organisms have been here longer than us, longer than forests, longer than bone. Leeches once clung to the legs of dinosaurs. Amoebas drifted through primordial seas before the first eyes opened. Their designs haven't changed much, because they haven't needed to. And while we've learned to treat water, to filter, boil, purify, the wild remains. In forgotten lakes, in backcountry streams, in decorative fountains left untended. Water left alone reverts to itself, to mystery. Even our bodies are mostly water, and that too is where they go. These creatures of stillness. They find us not through malice but design. We are made of the same elements they evolved to enter. And yet, The violence they bring is wrapped in silence. You don't see the leech until you feel the absence of warmth where it clings. You don't sense the amoeba until the fever sets in. You don't notice the fluke until the liver starts to fail. But by then, the work has already begun. There's a kind of eerie poetry to it, that these predators don't chase or roar or threaten, they simply wait. They wait in silence, in stillness. In the waters we forget to fear. The ocean invites wonder. It sparkles under the sun. It sings against the shore. To stand at its edge is to stand before something ancient, vast, and unknowable. But below that glittering surface, beneath the waves that lull and soothe, another truth stirs. One not of awe but of precision, of elegance wrapped in danger, of creatures made not of muscle or bone but of chemistry, of stillness, of death disguised as beauty. Some of the most lethal lives on this planet drift through water like ghosts. No footsteps, no shadows, no sound, only motion, fluid and hypnotic. The box jellyfish is nearly invisible in the shallows of the tropics. Its body, soft and square, pulses with a rhythm too gentle to threaten. But hanging from its body are dozens of translucent tentacles, each lined with thousands of microscopic harpoons. They fire not by choice, but by contact. The moment skin brushes tentacle, they erupt, injecting venom so potent it can stop a human heart in minutes. The pain is instant, blinding. The nervous system begins to burn. Muscle locks, breathing falters, and in some cases death comes before the swimmer even reaches the shore. Survivors describe the pain as unbearable, as if the body is unraveling from the inside. And yet the box jellyfish doesn't pursue. It doesn't even seem to notice. It floats softly like silk in water. Lethal, but never loud. Then there is the stonefish, a creature that does not move unless it must. It lies on the ocean floor, mottled skin indistinguishable from the surrounding rock and sand. It waits, not for prey to chase, but for a foot to misstep. Its dorsal spines, buried beneath flesh, shoot up when pressed, injecting venom that causes immediate swelling, paralysis, and in rare cases, death. The stonefish's venom attacks the lymphatic system, triggering shock and muscle death. It is not a hunter. It is a trap, and it is perfect at being mistaken for nothing at all. The blue-ringed octopus is perhaps the most quietly astonishing. A creature no larger than a golf ball, its body pulses with soft yellows and creams until it feels threatened. Then rings of electric blue ignite along its skin, flashing like warning signs from another world. But it doesn't strike. It waits. Its venom, delivered through a bite so small it may go unnoticed, contains tetrodotoxin, a neurotoxin more potent than cyanide. It can paralyze within minutes, render lungs useless, freeze the voice in the throat, and yet the victim remains conscious. A mind trapped in a motionless body waiting. There is no antivenom, and still the octopus does not flee. It sits glowing, a miracle of life and death in equal measure. What makes these oceanic assassins so haunting isn't just their deadliness, it's their form, their grace, the way they blur the line between beauty and threat. We expect danger to announce itself, but here it is weightless. It is translucent, it drifts. Jellyfish have no brain, no heart, no spine, and yet they kill with more precision than any predator on land. The ocean has shaped them over millions of years, not into monsters, but into instruments. There's no hatred in their venom, no anger, no hunger that drives them to attack. Most stings, most bites, most injections of toxin are not acts of aggression, but mistakes, accidents of contact. And that's what makes them more terrifying, because they are not hunting us. They are simply there, floating in lagoons, hiding among coral, settling in tide pools where children play and bare feet wade. Their lives are built on silence and reaction. And then there are the shells. Cone snails, unassuming, patterned like fine porcelain, hide a weapon so advanced it borders on science fiction. They fire harpoon-like teeth from a tubular proboscis, injecting a venom that can paralyze almost instantly. Some species can kill a human with a single sting. The victim may not feel the puncture at all. Their beauty is disarming, glossy, spiraled, found in gift shops and tide lines, and yet, to pick one up without knowing is to hold a weapon designed by evolution to end life in seconds. This is the ocean without mercy, not because it seeks to punish, but because it doesn't choose. Its creatures do not care what we see. They do not need our attention. Their forms, their colors, their toxins, none were shaped with us in mind. We are incidental, soft-bodied strangers in a world that does not yield. The ocean is a cathedral of hidden threats. Some shimmer with bioluminescence. Some hide in plain sight. Some bloom only at night, in the black water beyond the reach of sun, glowing with light made of chemical fire. And yet we swim, we float, we snorkel and dive and splash with wonder. Because the beauty is real, the awe is deserved. But just beneath it, just beyond reach, are the reminders. Life in the sea is not filtered for safety. It is designed for survival. And sometimes that survival is sharp. Sometimes it burns. Sometimes it doesn't let go. So next time you stand on the shore looking out at the endless blue, remember what moves beneath. Not sharks or monsters or the stories we tell for thrill, but the quiet ones, the translucent, the coiled, the glowing, the still. They carry no anger, they need no reason, they drift. And if you touch them, they answer. There is a kind of silence in the deep sea that doesn't exist on land. Not the silence of still air or closed doors, but the silence of pressure, of distance, of unbroken dark. In this place, light is not a given. It is a flicker, a choice, a warning. And in that darkness there are creatures, if you can call them that look less like animals and more like dreams half remembered. They are shaped like ghosts, sometimes formless, sometimes flawless, all made of substance so thin, so delicate they could disappear if touched. Or perhaps they were never really there at all. Here in the midwater twilight and into the abyss, the rules of the surface fade. Predators glow instead of chase. Prey turns invisible. Flesh becomes glass. The barrel-eye fish floats in cold, lightless water with a head like crystal. Its skull transparent, revealing eyes that rotate within the dome, watching not forward but upward. It looks alien, like something drawn in a half-sleep sketch. But it is real. It waits. It watches. Its transparency protects it. The sea angel drifts with slow wings, not feathered but gelatinous, pulsing. Its body is so clear you can see its heartbeat. It moves like a thought underwater. It does not rush. And though it looks delicate, it's a predator preying on its cousin, the sea butterfly, with grace and precision. There are jellyfish down here whose bells shimmer like moons, whose tendrils stretch meters long. Some glow with soft pulses of bioluminescence, not chaotic but rhythmic like breathing, like lullabies. One, the Atolla jellyfish, reacts to attack not by fleeing but by exploding into rings of blue light, a scream of color in the darkness, not to frighten but to summon a larger predator, a second threat to eat the first. This is not fight or flight, it's choreography. And then there are the siphonophores, colonial organisms that defy our definition of a creature. Each one is made of many, individual zooids, each specialized, each dependent on the whole. Together they form long ghost-like threads that drift in the open water. Some reach lengths longer than a blue whale, longer than anything else alive, and yet they weigh almost nothing. They are filaments of intention, of sensation, of slow hunger. Their tendrils are lined with stinging cells, capable of stunning prey instantly. But to the human eye, they are nearly invisible. A diver might pass through them without realizing. A brush against the arm, a sting with no source. This is a realm where form dissolves, where organs give way to light, where mouths glow, where lures pulse in the dark to mimic movement, to lie. The anglerfish dangles its own flesh in front of its jaws, pretending to be something smaller, more innocent, more edible, until the moment it strikes. Many of these deep-sea creatures produce their own light, not reflected, not refracted, but born within. Chemical reactions inside their skin. They use it to see, to lure, to confuse, but most of all, they use it to remain unseen. It's a paradox. Here, in the darkest place on Earth, light is most abundant, but not sunlight, not warmth. These are flashes of cold illumination. Ghost fire. Some emit blue, others red, rare, almost invisible to most eyes. Some strobe in patterns, some shimmer gently, barely enough to register, and some can turn their lights off like closing an eye. It is not just survival, it is poetry. This choreography of glow and shadow. To see one of these beings rise from the deep is to witness something both ancient and otherworldly. A translucent squid with undulating fins lined with lights like runway signals. A comb jelly flickering with rainbows across its skin, not because it glows, but because its body bends light like a prism. A glass octopus, all its organs visible, all its movements slow, as if water resists it less than gravity. Many of these creatures remain unnamed, unclassified, seen once, maybe twice, by deep-sea cameras or submersibles. They disappear before understanding catches up, like dreams. And they are not aggressive, not fast. They don't chase like sharks or breach like whales. They float, they blink. They exist in a state of near stillness, waiting. They are not built for us. They are not made to be seen. In this part of the ocean, pressure crushes. Light cannot reach. Temperature barely rises above freezing. And yet life thrives, not despite the conditions, but because of them. These creatures are shaped by constraint. Their beauty is born of limitation. They have adapted to be invisible, to hide in a world where there's nowhere to hide. And there's something about that, about their quiet success, that speaks to something buried deep in us. The desire to be unseen, to survive without spectacle, to glow only when needed. They are ghosts not because they are dead, but because they exist in a space between known and unknowable, between body and light, between threat and wonder. And maybe if you were to sink far enough, deeper than sound, deeper than color, they would surround you. Not as enemies, not as monsters, but as witnesses. And you, drifting in their midst, would understand that the most haunting creatures in the ocean are not the ones with teeth, but the ones you almost don't see at all. There is no panic in their movements, no wasted motion, no frenzied chase. The creatures that kill best rarely need to hurry. Snakes, scorpions, cone snails, they do not fit the image of chaos or bloodlust. They are measured, unrushed, as if they've already won before the encounter even begins. Their elegance is not in how they end life, but in how simply they do it. Take the viper. Its body is poetry, coiled geometry, muscles smooth and silent under scale. It does not run. It does not warn. It waits. Its strike is a fraction of a second, a blur so fast the prey never understands the moment it went wrong. And then, the venom begins its work. But the viper is not cruel. Its venom is not madness, but chemistry. Each drop is a cocktail of precision. Enzymes that break down tissue, neurotoxins that silence, signals, proteins that open floodgates within cells. The snake steps back, watches, waits. It knows the math will finish the hunt. There is beauty in that patience, a kind of earned confidence. Scorpions belong to another kind of silence. They hunt in the dark, under stones and bark, their pincers held wide, their tail coiled like a question. The sting comes when needed, never before. Its venom varies, some designed to kill insects, others powerful enough to end a child's life. And yet most scorpions want nothing more than to be unseen. To sting is expensive. To sting is last resort. But when it comes, it is precise. The body knows what it's doing. And then there is the cone snail, small, slow, decorated in impossible patterns, like porcelain painted by something dreaming, found in warm shallows nestled in sand or tide pools. It looks delicate, but its tooth is a harpoon, hidden within a proboscis launched with mechanical force. And what it delivers is one of the most sophisticated venoms on Earth. It doesn't just kill, it paralyzes instantly before pain, before resistance. Cone snail venom contains dozens, sometimes hundreds of toxins, each tailored to a specific nerve channel, shutting down the body like flicking off switches in a darkened house. Some humans, after touching a live cone snail, never make it out of the water. And yet, it remains still, beautiful, almost ornamental. These are not creatures that chase or rage. They don't roar or bellow. They are refined, tuned, shaped by time and necessity into instruments of sudden, graceful death. Even the act of delivering venom is optimized. Snakes fold their fangs into their mouths when not in use. Perfect engineering. Scorpions reabsorb unused venom, conserving it for the next strike. The cone snail manufactures its toxins from scratch like a chemist with infinite time. What unites them is efficiency. Evolution doesn't worship strength. It rewards what works. And in these creatures, lethality is the result of endless edits, mistakes burned away until only function remains. That's what makes them so captivating. Not their deadliness, but their restraint. Not their speed, but their silence. Not their drama, but their design. In their world, there is no cruelty, there is no villain, there is only purpose. They do not revel in the kill, they do not linger in violence. They do what they are built to do, and they do it beautifully. It begins not with violence, but with design. With the shape of a fang, the curve of a stinger, the placement of a venom sac. These are not chaotic inventions, they are architecture, cold, perfect, efficient. Nature does not decorate without reason. Every groove, every sheath, every joint exists because it must, because it worked, and anything that didn't, vanished. A snake's fang is not just a tooth, it is a syringe, hollow or grooved, hinged to fold neatly inside the jaw, spring-loaded to extend in a heartbeat. The musculature behind it is calibrated, pressure measured not by instinct but by evolution. Enough to pierce, enough to inject, never more than needed. Venom is costly. It must be delivered with care. The fangs of a rattlesnake lie flat until the strike. Then, like blades on a switchblade, they swing forward. Smooth, practiced, always aligned. There is no rehearsal. Every strike is the result of millions of years of optimization. The scorpion's tail is another kind of design. Segmented, flexible. Its arc is calculated, able to strike forward, sideways, even overhead. At the tip, the telson, a bulb containing venom, and the aculeus, the sting itself, sharp enough to puncture keratin, controlled by fine-tuned muscles. This is not a club or a whip. It is a needle, a scalpel that moves with instinct sharper than thought. Even among insects, this engineering repeats. The wasp's ovipositor, originally an egg-laying tool, has in many species evolved into a venomous stinger. It can pierce armor, slice through exoskeleton, deliver neurotoxin with surgical accuracy. Some wasps inject their venom not just to kill, but to paralyze, preserving their prey. They don't eat it, their young do, laid gently inside a still living body fed by paralysis. There is no kindness in this design, but there is no cruelty either, only function. Consider the cone snail again, not the sting, but the construction. Its radular tooth, shaped like a tiny harpoon, is manufactured deep within its body, then moved forward on a conveyor of muscle. It can be replaced. It can be loaded. It is not fixed, but dynamic. A venom delivery system that rivals hypodermic needles, designed not in a lab, but in reef and tide. The venom sac across species varies in complexity. Some, like vipers, produce venom in paired glands behind the eyes. Others, like centipedes, store it in forcipules. Modified legs evolved into curved daggers. Each system is positioned for immediate use. There is no waste, no delay. The elegance is in how small these systems are. Miniature factories embedded in bodies no larger than a child's finger. And yet they outperform our own inventions. The most advanced synthetic drugs still struggle to match the specificity of a wasp's paralyzing venom. Our needles cannot mimic the precision of a fang shaped by time. Nature builds with pressure, with time, with failure. A species survives not because it is the strongest, but because it is the most efficient. In that regard, venomous species are not accidents. They are masterpieces. Even the behavior that surrounds these tools is engineered. The cobra flares its hood not just to intimidate, but to widen its silhouette, making itself look larger, more threatening. A psychological bluff to avoid a physical fight. The rattlesnake warns before it strikes. Its rattle evolved not to provoke, but to protect, both itself and those who listen. Predators with venom often strike only when provoked. Their design is not for conquest, but defense. Their lethality is the last word in a conversation they never wanted to begin. We often call these features weapons, but perhaps they are more like instruments, finely tuned, honed not for noise but for results. To see a spider poised in the corner of a web is to see restraint. To see a scorpion walking across stone is to see patience. These are creatures whose deadliness lies not in rage but in readiness. And even the visuals, the colors, the signals, those too are part of the design. The coral snake wears bright bands of red, yellow, black, a warning, worn like a flag. I am dangerous, it says, and I want you to know it. It is an honest lie, a preemptive signal. Stay away. Some harmless snakes mimic that pattern. Their design is deception, survival by illusion. Their colors work only because danger made them meaningful first. There is a quiet reverence to be found here in the way life shapes itself toward efficiency. Toward beauty, even if we define beauty not by gentleness but by coherence. Fangs, stingers, glands, sacs, all shaped by time, all designed without mercy, but also without waste. They are not born to terrify us, they don't hunt us. They exist because their design worked, because for countless generations it succeeded. And in that success we can trace a map of what evolution values: clarity, function, precision, control. Not everything that kills is brutal. Not everything that's deadly is loud. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world is perfectly quiet, perfectly shaped, perfectly designed. In the human world, death is often draped in black, a thing to fear, to fight, to push away. We mark it with silence, with sorrow, with stories that cast it as an end or a punishment. But in the natural world, death wears no such costume. It is not enemy or error. It is rhythm. It is function. To call a creature deadly is to speak in human terms, to assign it a shadowed moral weight it does not recognize. The spider weaving its web does not consider cruelty. The snake does not strike in anger. The scorpion does not sting for pride. They do what they must because it is what they are. Because life in every form demands balance. In the wild, death is not evil. It is necessary. It is structural. The predator keeps the prey population in check. The scavenger clears the rot. The parasite moderates its host. When these forces vanish, imbalance takes their place. Overgrowth, collapse, starvation. Life feeds life, and death is not the end of that cycle. It is what sustains it. Even the most venomous creatures on Earth do not kill for pleasure. Their venom is a tool, a means of subduing prey quickly, of defending themselves with minimal risk. A way to survive in a world where hesitation can be fatal. It is not excess. It is economy. The cone snail, the viper, the assassin bug. Their lethality is not a flaw. It is a solution. The more efficient the kill, the safer the hunter. The quicker the strike, the less likely the injury. The venomous strike is not an act of violence, but an act of precision. Death, when it comes, is clean. Nature does not shy away from death. It builds around it. Fungi feed on the fallen. Vultures clean what others cannot. Insects lay their eggs in decaying wood, knowing their young will emerge into a feast. There is no mourning, no pause, only continuation. Even in our own bodies, death is constant. Cells die by the millions every minute. Skin sloughs off. Blood recycles. The immune system destroys to protect. Without death, we could not function. Without loss, there is no regeneration. The body does not treat its own endings as tragedy. It treats them as design. Some of the world's most feared creatures live short lives. The adult mayfly lasts only hours, not long enough to feed, only long enough to reproduce. Some insects are born pregnant, designed to die after the first laying. These are not mistakes, these are choices. Shaped not by cruelty, but by necessity. Even plants kill. The Venus flytrap does not hesitate. The pitcher plant drowns. The parasitic daughter chokes the life from its host. They are not gentle, but neither are they wrong. To be deadly is not to be monstrous. It is to occupy a role. A spider that kills one fly saves hundreds of other creatures from that fly's offspring. A mosquito carrying malaria may seem like an evil, and for us it is a tragedy. But for the parasite it carries, the cycle continues. In that perspective, no one is villain. Everyone is vessel. This is not to dismiss the suffering such organisms cause. Illness, poison, loss. These are real, but they are not personal. Nature does not know us as we know ourselves. It reacts, it adjusts, it survives. What is awe-inspiring is how often death is paired with grace. The cobra, regal and restrained. The jellyfish, translucent and timeless. The orchid mantis, disguised as beauty itself. They do not look like death. They do not feel like fear. And yet they are part of that silent machinery. The quiet calibration of who eats and who is eaten. Perhaps what unsettles us is not the violence itself, but the indifference. The spider spins her web whether or not we are watching. The scorpion stings whether or not we understand. The ocean releases its toxins whether or not we believe we belong there. But that indifference is also reassurance, because it means we are not the center. We are not the targets, we are simply part of the equation. Sometimes prey, sometimes observer, often irrelevant. The world is not built around us, it includes us. In that space, fear can give way to reverence. To understand that death in nature is not a door slammed shut, but a passageway opened wide, feeding soil, clearing space, shaping evolution. Every predator sharpens the prey. Every prey selects the predator. Each change cascades through time, creating new forms, new systems, new balance. Without death, there is no adaptation. Without loss, no resilience. And so, the deadly become necessary, Not because we admire them, not because we fear them, but because without them the world unravels. So when you see a spider in the corner of a room, or a snake sliding through tall grass, or a scorpion resting beneath a rock, know that they are not symbols of threat. They are signs of function, of structure, of a system that has learned to survive. There is no mercy in their design, but there is no waste either. And in that balance there is something like peace. There are things inside you right now that do not belong to you. They move when you move. They feed when you eat. They travel through your bloodstreams like whispers, like ghosts. You may never know their names. You may never feel them arrive, but they are there. Our bodies, for all their complexity, are porous, not just physically, but biologically. They are not sealed systems, they are open landscapes, and some creatures, ancient, invisible, patient, have learned how to enter. Malaria is not a creature in the traditional sense. It is a parasite, plasmodium, delivered through the bite of a mosquito. But what it does once inside is precise. It slips into red blood cells, it multiplies, it bursts out, it cycles in rhythm with the body's own defenses, riding waves of fever and chills. It alters the shape of cells to hide from the immune system. It learns, it waits, it kills, not quickly but thoroughly. More people have died from malaria than from any war. It is not dramatic. It does not leave scars. It drains. It haunts. It becomes part of you. Lyme disease enters with less ceremony. A tick, unnoticed, attaches and feeds. During those hours, a spiral-shaped bacterium, Borrelia burgdorferi, enters the bloodstream. The bite itself is painless, but the symptoms that follow can be anything but: fever, fatigue, joint pain, neurological fog. In some it passes, in others it lingers, changing not just the body but the self. Memories flicker, emotions shift. The person who recovers is not always the person who was bitten. These infections are not surface wounds, they become internal narratives. And then there is Toxoplasma gondii. Unlike malaria or Lyme, toxoplasmosis is rarely dramatic. For most people it causes no symptoms at all, but its preferred path is the brain. Carried through undercooked meat or cat feces, the parasite crosses into the nervous system. In rats, it erases fear, specifically fear of cat scent. Infected rats don't run from cats, they're drawn to them. The parasite needs the cat to complete its life cycle, and so it manipulates the host to serve its purpose. And in humans, the science is still emerging, but the links are there. Higher risk-taking, slower reaction times, subtle shifts in personality, a quiet pull from within. It doesn't scream, it nudges. Some studies suggest a connection between toxoplasmosis and mental illness. Schizophrenia, in particular. Others find no clear pattern, but the idea persists that something so small could shape thought, could whisper through neurons, could in some small way become a part of what we call me. There is something profoundly unsettling about that, because if our thoughts can be altered even slightly, even silently by a microbe, what else do we carry unknowingly? Our bloodstreams are not empty corridors. They are rivers of information, cells, hormones, invaders. Some flow with us, some flow through us. A virus may change the shape of a protein and in doing so change how we feel pain. A parasite may tweak our neurotransmitters and change how we perceive risk. A bacterium may survive in the gut and influence our mood, our digestion, our behavior. None of this is science fiction. It is biology. And it is happening all the time. We are taught to think of the body as ours. But in truth, it is a negotiation, a shared space filled with organisms we cannot see and often do not control. Some come and go, some stay, some hide for decades waiting for the right weakness, the right stress, the right moment to reawaken. Even the viruses that don't kill can leave pieces of themselves behind, embedded in DNA, inherited across generations. Ancient viral code makes up a surprising portion of the human genome, remnants of past infections written into our genetic story. We are not just infected, we are shaped, and still we go about our days, unaware, untroubled for the most part. But once in a while, a fever with no clear cause, a sudden dizziness, a shift in thought or sleep or clarity. Something invisible touches something central, and we are reminded. The boundary between outside and inside is thinner than it seems. There is nothing to fear in this truth, only recognition that the creatures in our blood are not just enemies. Some are protectors, some are harmless passengers, some are quiet threats. But all are part of the same dance: survival, adaptation, replication. The laws of biology playing out inside the folds of our own bodies. And when we feel pain or illness or confusion, sometimes it is not us at all. Sometimes it is something within us speaking. In that whisper, in that shiver under the skin, a new understanding begins that we are not alone, not even in our own blood. What does it mean to have a thought that wasn't truly yours? To move not because you chose to, but because something else, unseen, silent, whispered behind your eyes. In nature, such stories unfold all the time. Minds are taken, wills are redirected, autonomy becomes illusion, and the creatures responsible are not monsters in the traditional sense. They are small, precise, relentless. Parasites have long mastered the art of control, not just over the body but the mind. Consider the ant. It walks the forest floor following pheromone trails, part of a colony's rhythm. And then, a single spore lands on its back. Ophiocordyceps unilateralis, a parasitic fungus, begins its work. It spreads through the ant's body not to kill it outright, but to reach the brain. Once there, it takes control. The ant climbs, leaves the colony, finds a leaf at just the right height, bites down with its jaws, and stops, paralyzed, anchored. From its head, the fungus grows. A stalk emerges, spores are released. The body, now a husk, falls. The cycle repeats. This is not madness, it's design. Some parasites target fish, like the Euhaplorchus fluke, which infects the brains of killifish. The parasite manipulates dopamine and serotonin, altering the fish's behavior. It swims closer to the surface, darting erratically, flashing its belly in the light. Behavior that makes it easier for birds to spot, catch, and eat. And the fluke wants that, because it needs to be in the bird to reproduce. The fish unknowingly becomes bait, a vehicle for someone else's survival. Another, Leucochloridium paradoxum, invades snails. It travels to their eye stalks and pulses with color, mimicking a caterpillar. Birds eat the swollen, glowing eyes, spreading the parasite to its next host. The snail survives, blinded, hollowed, puppeted. And what's most haunting? The precision. The parasite doesn't destroy the whole mind, only what it needs. It edits, selects, redirects. These are not metaphors. They are real. Insects, crustaceans, mollusks, all fall under this strange influence. But the question follows. What about us? We are not exempt. We are not immune. Toxoplasma gondii, already living in the brains of millions of people, alters risk behavior. Perhaps subtly, perhaps significantly. Studies have linked infection to changes in reaction time, fear processing, even likelihood of accidents. Rats lose their fear of cats. Do we lose something too? Rabies, though less subtle, is a brutal example. A virus that climbs the nervous system toward the brain, inflaming it. When it reaches its target, it hijacks instinct. The infected become hyper-aggressive, unable to swallow, terrified of water. all to drive biting behavior, to spread the virus further. It rewrites terror, turns it into function. Even prions, misfolded proteins like those found in mad cow disease or chronic wasting disease, do not simply destroy, they convert. One by one, they reshape normal proteins into themselves like a whisper spreading through a crowd. Eventually, the brain collapses. But long before that, behavior changes. The self shifts. And yet these aren't living in the traditional sense. Prions have no DNA, no cell walls, but they still change minds. The more we study, the blurrier the line becomes between autonomy and influence. Gut bacteria have been found to influence the production of neurotransmitters. Serotonin, dopamine, GABA. They speak in chemistry, not words. They shape appetite, mood, even social behavior. It's possible that who we are, or who we feel like being on a given day, is partially determined by trillions of organisms that live in our digestive tract. Our minds are not sealed towers. They are open fields. Ideas move through them. So do parasites. Even behaviors that feel instinctive, attraction, aversion, fear, may not be entirely ours. And this isn't new. This is ancient. From the beginning, life has evolved not just to survive the environment, but to use other life as a vessel, as shelter, as vehicle, as means. And so the idea of a self, bounded and protected, begins to shift. What if the impulse to turn left instead of right wasn't yours? What if the sudden anxiety, the craving, the dream was the echo of something within, not imagined but real? What does it mean to be human if part of that humanity is shared? Nature does not draw hard lines between species, between host and parasite, between master and mind. It prefers gradients, shared spaces, gray areas. The ant walks its final steps not knowing it has lost control. The fish flashes and flutters, unaware it has become a lure. The snail pulses with borrowed color. And we go about our days, drink coffee, take the subway, scroll through screens, occasionally wondering why we feel not quite ourselves. It may be nothing, or it may be something speaking softly inside us, not to harm, but to persist. And if that's true, if the mind can be shaped, redirected, borrowed, then the most haunting question isn't who am I? It's who else is here with me? We like to think of ourselves as singular, one mind, one body, one name. But the truth is softer, stranger, shared. We are not alone, even in our own skin. At this very moment, your body is home to trillions of organisms. They live in your mouth, your gut, your lungs, your skin. They are older than you, smaller than you, and together, more numerous than your own human cells. You are not just a person. You are an ecosystem. The gut alone is a rainforest of life. Bacteria, viruses, fungi, archaea, a microbial jungle pulsing with chemical messages. Some help digest your food. Others influence your mood. Some train your immune system, deciding what is friend and what is foe. And some simply exist, neither harming nor helping, passengers on the quiet tide of your life. We call it the microbiome. But that word feels too sterile for what it truly is. A living sea shaped by birth, by diet, by touch, by illness, by chance. It is unique to you, and it is not you, not entirely. Newborns emerge into the world nearly sterile. Then with every breath, every feed, every moment pressed against another body, they are colonized. The mother's skin, the air, the first touch. These become the first seeds of a hidden forest. By the time we take our first steps, we are already shared, and some of those passengers stay for life. Most are quiet, cooperative. They coexist with our cells, harmonizing with our rhythms. But others wait for a shift, a crack in the system, an antibiotic, a fever, a moment of imbalance, and then they bloom, once helpful, now harmful. Overgrowth, infection, collapse. It is not betrayal, it is opportunity. We are their habitat, their weather, their soil. And just as forests burn, just as rivers flood, the body's internal ecosystem can shift. Sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. There are creatures in our skin too, mites that live in our pores, feeding on sebum and dead cells. Demodex follicularum is one of them, invisible to the naked eye, curled deep within hair follicles. Every face has them. Most of us never know. They do not hurt us. They do not help us. They simply live where it's warm. Their lives are short. Their world is your skin. And when they die, they dissolve, leaving behind no trace but the shape of absence. And there are viruses, not just the ones that infect, but the ones that stay. Some hide in our DNA. Others slip into nerve cells and rest for decades. Herpes, Epstein-Barr, varicella. They do not always cause symptoms, but they are there, asleep, dreaming. Sometimes what we call self is simply the majority voice in a crowded room. The immune system speaks loudest and we listen. But the whispers are constant. Microbial suggestions, biochemical nudges, requests made in molecules. And it changes us. Studies have shown that gut microbes can affect anxiety, depression, even decision-making. Some species thrive when we eat sugar. Others prefer fiber. Their needs become cravings. Their signals feel like hunger, like mood, like instinct. We think we're choosing, but sometimes we're answering. And yet, this is not a horror story. This is not invasion. This is coexistence. Because without them, we do not thrive. Without microbes, we cannot digest. Without viruses, we may not develop immunity. Without bacteria, our skin would be raw, our lungs inflamed, our thoughts perhaps different. We are not the lone inhabitants of our own bodies. We are colonies, cities, shared vessels. To be human is not to be alone in your skin. It is to be a host, a habitat, a collection. Even death does not clear the room. After the heart stops, a second life begins. Microbes shift, migrate, digest, transformation. They return the body to the soil, not as destroyers, but as caretakers. We often recoil from the idea of being infested, but that's not what this is. This is symbiosis. This is inheritance. This is being alive. We are never truly solitary, not in a crowd, not in the dark, not even in silence. There is life within you, and not metaphorically. Actual pulsing, replicating life. Some of it protects you, some of it shapes you, some of it waits. And when you sleep, they do not. Your breath warms them, your heartbeat rocks them, your dreams unfold over their quiet presence. We are not alone. We were never meant to be. History is often told through the actions of kings and queens, generals and revolutions, through maps redrawn and empires fallen. But beneath those sweeping arcs, hidden in shadows, crawling through grain stores and whispering in alleyways, are creatures so small, so easily ignored, they're rarely mentioned in the grand narratives. And yet, they changed everything. The flea is barely a speck, wingless, leaping. It clings to fur, nestles into cloth, feeds without thanks. But the flea did not act alone. It carried with it a passenger, Yersinia pestis, the bacterium behind the Black Death. Delivered by the bite of a flea, often riding on the back of a rat, it swept through Europe in the 14th century with the force of a hurricane. But silent, invisible. More than a third of Europe's population vanished. Entire villages emptied, cities closed their gates. And still the rats slipped through, the fleas fed, the sickness bloomed. It was not war that shattered the medieval world, it was biology. And it wasn't the last time. Centuries later, yellow fever burned through colonial ports and southern cities. Spread by mosquitoes, it turned once thriving streets into ghost towns. Bodies were buried in haste, Ships were turned away. Trade collapsed. And yet the mosquito was rarely blamed. It was too small, too ordinary. But the mosquito decided battles. In Haiti, it devastated Napoleon's forces, leading to the collapse of French ambitions in the Americas. The Haitian Revolution, aided not just by resistance but by disease, helped shape the modern Western Hemisphere. Sometimes parasites move not through war but through food. In ancient Rome, malaria, bad air they called it, drained the lifeblood of the empire. It bred in the marshes around the Tiber, climbing into villas and slums alike. It weakened legions, unsettled provinces, dulled the pulse of a city once invincible. Malaria did not march on Rome. It swam. And while armies crossed deserts and oceans, tiny stowaways followed. The parasite trypanosoma, carried by tsetse flies, changed the shape of African settlements for centuries. Livestock died. Entire regions remained sparsely inhabited. Sleeping sickness crept into dreams, into minds, into culture. Not a fast plague, but a slow unraveling. Even the humble louse, the sort found in every schoolchild's memory, once played its role. In the trenches of World War I, lice spread Rickettsia prowazekii, the bacterium behind typhus. It killed thousands, sometimes more than bullets. In Napoleon's Russian campaign, it decimated his army long before the cold could. These were not soldiers. They carried no flags, no banners. They moved between bodies, invisible in their work, and yet they helped redraw the world. There's a haunting symmetry in that civilizations rose on trade and expansion but crumbled when small things traveled with them. Sailors brought rats, rats brought fleas, fleas brought plague, merchants brought silks and spices, and the organisms hiding within them. Conquest brought not just war, but contagion. The colonization of the Americas introduced old-world diseases to immunologically naive populations. Smallpox, measles, typhus, all spread faster than horses or steel. Some indigenous nations lost over 90% of their people within decades, not by sword, not by strategy, but by pathogens too small to see. And still, the world turned. Still, the empires told stories of glory, of divine right, of manifest destiny. But beneath those stories, in the lungs of soldiers and the bellies of insects, the real architects of change moved quietly. History doesn't always wear a crown. Sometimes it wears chitin, or fur, or nothing at all. What's most sobering is how repeated these patterns are, how the same creatures return again and again, reshaping borders, toppling regimes, hollowing power from within, and yet they are never remembered in monuments. There are no statues to the mosquito, no frescoes for the flea, no cathedrals for the louse, but they deserve them, not out of admiration, but out of recognition. Because while emperors gave speeches, these creatures moved unnoticed, changing the course of history by simply surviving, by feeding, by doing what they were always meant to do, not out of malice, but out of function. They are ghosts of our past, not myth, not legend, but real, alive, and still with us. Long before medicine, long before science, humans lived in a world of mystery, a world where illness had spirit, where animals were omens, and where death arrived on silent feet. In that world, the deadly creatures among us were not just feared, they were revered. Venom was not seen as chemistry, it was power, divine, dangerous, and sacred. In ancient Egypt, the cobra held a place of honor. The uraeus, a stylized rearing serpent, adorned the crowns of pharaohs. It symbolized sovereignty, protection, divine wrath. It wasn't just a symbol of fear, but of legitimacy. The cobra kills quickly, without warning and without mercy. To wear it on one's brow was to claim a right to rule not just over men, but over the forces of life and death themselves. priests in temples invoked serpent deities to ward off evil. In some spells, venom was not a threat. It was a key, a way to cross the boundaries between the living and the dead. The scorpion, too, held mythic weight. In Mesopotamia, it was feared for its sting, but also honored as guardian. Scorpion men, half human, half arachnid, stood at the gates of the underworld in Sumerian myth. They protected sacred knowledge. They were not monsters, they were thresholds. To be stung was to be touched by something holy. Pain became message. Poison became proof. In South America, the venom of frogs, especially the bright, beautiful poison dart frogs, was not feared at a distance. It was collected carefully, reverently. Indigenous hunters would gently scrape the skin to extract secretions and coat their darts. The frog itself was unharmed. The act was ritual. Cambo, a modern continuation of this practice, uses the secretion of the Philomedusa bicolor, the giant monkey frog, as part of a cleansing rite. The venom is applied to fresh burns on the skin. It induces vomiting, sweating, dizziness. The body empties itself. Participants describe it not as poison but as purification. In India, the Naga, serpent deities, are worshipped to this day. Some temples are dedicated entirely to them. Offerings are made to seek protection, fertility, or rain. The snake is a bridge between human and divine, between now and the eternal. There's a thread in all these stories, deadly creatures as boundary keepers, as liminal beings, not here to destroy but to test, to warn, to reveal. The same reverence echoes in Africa, where puff adders and mambas slither through folklore. In some tales they are harbingers, in others protectors of sacred places. A bite might kill, but it might also mark you as chosen or cursed. Venom is unpredictable, invisible until it acts. In many cultures, this gave it a kind of mystery no claw or tooth could match. Among the Aztecs, scorpions were feared but also respected. Their shape appears in carvings and myth, often tied to themes of justice or vengeance. A sting wasn't just pain, it was consequence. And in medieval Europe, long after the gods of old had faded, whispers remained. A bite in the night was punishment, a sudden fever the mark of a sin unspoken. The natural world was still filled with signs, and many of those signs had fangs. Witchcraft trials in some regions accused women of speaking with snakes, of milking venom from them for curses. A viper in the garden was not just an animal. It was temptation, knowledge, the serpent of Eden coiled in a different shape. Even now, traces of this language survive. We call a person venomous when they are cruel. We say someone has a sting in their words. We use animal traits, viper, weasel, snake, as warnings. But underneath the insult is an old respect, because we still fear what we do not understand. And venom, even explained by science, still moves like magic. It begins with a bite or a sting, but what follows is different for every creature. Some venoms attack the nervous system, a swift unraveling of signal and sensation. Others clot the blood until it chokes the body from within. Still others break down tissue, leaving rot in their wake. No two venoms are alike. Each is tailored, each is purposeful. And yet, across cultures, people have found ways to work with them, not just to fear them, but to learn from them. Snake charmers in South Asia, while often misunderstood, represent a deeper cultural relationship with serpents. One that's performative, yes, but also intimate. The dance is not domination, it's dialogue. Some tribes in Papua New Guinea reportedly use spider venom to induce altered states. Scorpion stings in desert cultures are part of rites of passage. Even venom has been used in therapeutic rituals, believed to cleanse or reset the body. To us, these may seem archaic, but to those who live closer to the wild, the boundary between harm and healing has always been thin. Venom, like fire, destroys and transforms. In the modern world, we now extract these same toxins for medicine. ACE inhibitors from pit viper venom help regulate blood pressure. Cone snail venom offers pain relief 1,000 times more potent than morphine, without addiction. Scorpion venom is being studied for use in cancer treatment. Death, repurposed for life. What ancient cultures treated as divine, we now analyze in laboratories. And yet, the awe remains. Because a creature that can end a life with a pinprick is something worth listening to. We've never stopped listening. We've just changed the language. Not all plagues are remembered. Some vanish not with triumph, but with silence. No parades, no memorials, just the slow fade of suffering into obscurity, like fog retreating at dawn. We speak of smallpox and the Black Death, of cholera, polio, influenza. They left craters in history. But beneath those well-worn names are quieter catastrophes. Outbreaks that hollowed villages, haunted riverbanks, and disappeared into dust without ever becoming myth. They are the forgotten epidemics. Take sleeping sickness, human African trypanosomiasis. For centuries it moved through equatorial Africa, carried by the tsetse fly, riding in bloodstreams, creeping into brains. In its early stage, it mimics fatigue, a fever, a swelling of lymph nodes. But then slowly it begins to change the person from within. Sleep becomes fractured, day and night blur, hallucinations arrive, then tremors, then silence. The body remains, but the self, the center, fades. It's not a dramatic death, it's a drift, a slow sinking into forgetfulness. In the early 20th century, colonial records show entire communities vanishing into the disease, and yet few outside those regions knew. Fewer still remember. Then there was blackwater fever, a complication of malaria once feared across the tropics. It causes red blood cells to rupture, flooding the urine with pigment. The body turns yellow, the urine turns black. Hence the name. It was once a common affliction among European colonials in Africa and Asia, often fatal, sometimes overnight. But with quinine's rise and then decline, so too did blackwater fever fade. Today, even many doctors have never seen a case. And yet, it shaped policy. Fear of disease kept borders closed, delayed exploration, ended expeditions before they began. Not because of lions, but because of something in the blood. River blindness, onchocerciasis, still lingers in parts of West and Central Africa. Caused by a parasitic worm transmitted by the black fly, it can live in the human body for over a decade. As it dies, it releases bacteria that trigger intense immune reactions. The skin itches, thickens, loses pigment. But the most devastating effect happens in the eyes. The name is not poetic. It blinds, slowly, painfully. Entire villages once lived under its shadow. Children would lead their blind elders through fields. Generations shaped not by choice, but by vector. Control campaigns have reduced it, but not erased it, and even now its name rarely appears in headlines. It is a quiet killer, a fading ghost. Other diseases disappeared without recognition. Yaws, a cousin of syphilis that disfigures skin and bone. Guinea worm, a parasitic thread that emerges from the body through open sores, sometimes feet long. It causes no death, only agony. And yet, in the last 50 years, it has nearly been eradicated, not with medicine, but with filters. Simplicity, not science, brought it low. And still most have never heard its name. There's something humbling in these forgotten plagues. They remind us that the history of illness is broader than we remember, that suffering is not always seen, that some of the most devastating epidemics left no mark in books or stone. They burned through jungles, through villages without maps, through people whose names were never written down, and because they left no ruins, they left no memory. But their impact was real. Fishermen stopped going out at night because of the tsetse. Travelers avoided rivers. Trade routes shifted. Superstitions grew. Myths were born. A child waking up with a fever could mean a curse or a fly. And in that uncertainty, culture was shaped. Even language bears the echoes. Words for sleep and forget blur in certain dialects. Folktales describe rivers that steal memory, forests that pull the spirit out of the body. These aren't fantasy. They're history filtered through metaphor. There's a sadness in this forgetting, not just for the lives lost, but for the knowledge lost with them. Many traditional cures were never recorded. Remedies passed down by whisper vanished with the last speaker. What remains are fragments. We remember war. We remember invention. But disease slips through the cracks, especially when it doesn't touch the powerful. And yet these forgotten epidemics shaped the world in subtle ways. They drew lines across maps. They changed how houses were built, how water was drawn, when crops were planted. They bent behavior, and now, as modern medicine pushes deeper into every corner, many of these illnesses retreat further into silence. Some may vanish entirely, others wait for neglect. But memory matters because what we forget we stop preparing for, and what we ignore returns. So let us remember not just the loud disasters, but the quiet ones. Not just the famous diseases, but the overlooked. Because somewhere by a river in a hut under a forgotten sky, something is still stirring, waiting for the right conditions, for the right season, for the silence to be complete. We live in a world shaped by things we cannot see. Not the wind, or the tides, or the orbit of the moon, but something smaller, stranger, more elusive, beings so tiny they fall outside the language of form, not beasts, not bugs, not even truly alive in the way we define life. And yet they are more powerful than any predator that's ever walked the earth. Viruses, prions, bacteriophages, the unseen apex predators of biology. They do not breathe. They do not eat. They do not think. They exist in a kind of quantum edge between chemical and creature. They do not replicate on their own. They must borrow, hijack, slip inside a living cell and reprogram it like a song rewritten mid-melody. And yet, in their emptiness, they achieve something extraordinary. They endure. A single virus, thousands of times smaller than the width of a hair, can bring down empires. Not metaphorically, literally. Smallpox carved through continents. Influenza shaped generations. HIV redefined global health. And in recent memory, an invisible particle, spherical, silent, unthinking, halted the world. Not with force, but with proximity, with transmission, with persistence. Viruses are not truly alive, yet they behave like they are. They mutate, adapt, evolve. They learn to bind tighter, to spread faster, to hide longer. It's not intention, it's pressure. The pressure of survival. The same ancient algorithm that shapes all life. They are not invaders in the traditional sense. They don't kill to eat. They replicate, that's all. A single goal, a single line of code repeated again and again until a body collapses or fights back or dies trying. But there is something stranger, something colder. Prions. They don't even carry genetic material. No DNA, no RNA, no nucleus. They are proteins, twisted into the wrong shape. But in their wrongness, they gain power. A prion enters the brain and touches another protein, and that one changes shape too. Like a whisper, like a rumor, it spreads, not by division but by conversion. Eventually, the brain becomes a sponge. Holes open, thoughts stutter, the body trembles. There is no cure. There is no immune response. The body doesn't even recognize it as foreign. It is not a parasite. It is a reflection, a part of you turned against itself. Diseases like Creutzfeldt-Jakob, Kuru, mad cow, all come from these shapeshifters, these misfolded echoes, and still smaller things remain. The bacteriophage, a virus that preys on bacteria, is one of the most alien-looking beings in the natural world. It looks engineered, a geometric body, a stalk, spindly legs like landing gear. It lands on a bacterial cell, drills in and injects its DNA. The cell becomes a factory. Eventually it bursts, releasing more phages into the microscopic dark. Some scientists believe phages outnumber all other biological entities on the planet. They shape microbial populations, influence ecosystems, and even live inside us, silently protecting us from bacterial overgrowth. They are not monsters. They are maintenance. To look at a drop of seawater under a microscope is to enter another universe. Thousands of viruses in a single droplet, millions in a breath of air. Most do nothing to us. Some help us. Others wait for imbalance. We do not feel them. We do not smell them. But they move with us, through us, on our skin, our clothes, our breath. The boundaries of the body mean nothing to them. They are not predators in the way we understand. They are instructions, looking for machines. Even now, in laboratories and soil samples in the thin blue line of the atmosphere, new ones are being discovered. Viral dark matter, the vast majority of viruses that we have never sequenced, never classified, never even noticed. What do they do? Where do they come from? No one knows. Some may be ancient, predating multicellular life. Others may be evolving in real time, shifting faster than we can track them. They don't speak. They don't leave footprints. They leave absence. They leave silence. What's unsettling is not just their scale, but their reach. There are viruses that infect only one species in one region under one temperature. And there are others that span oceans, cross kingdoms, jump from bat to pig to human. Not because they mean to, because they can. And we are simply one more host, one more chapter. They do not choose us. They find us. And once found, they do what they were shaped to do. Replicate, mutate, spread, repeat. It is easy to think of them as evil. But that would be a mistake. They have no motives, no thoughts. They are not trying to win. They are trying to persist. And in that, they are remarkably successful. Even in death, they shape us. Viral fragments embedded in our genomes speak to past infections, ancient pandemics encoded in our DNA. Some of those fragments have been repurposed by evolution, used to build the placenta to regulate genes. Once feared, now foundational. We are not just victims of viruses, we are descendants of them. They are older than us, more numerous than us, and in many ways, more enduring. We like to believe we see the world as it is, but most of it lies beyond vision, in the nanoscopic, in the formless, in the realm of things that are not quite alive and yet define life. To stare through a microscope is not just to magnify, it is to confront how little we know, and how much depends on what we cannot see. Not every life form moves with muscle. Not every hunter stalks or pounces. Some instead solve problems. They don't think the way we do. They don't plan. But their bodies are patterns, their lives equations, carried out not with logic but with necessity. Over generations, over millennia, these organisms have been edited by pressure and chance into something astonishing. Living algorithms. Consider the liver fluke, a parasite with a life cycle so elaborate it seems like myth. It begins in a cow or a sheep, deep in the bile ducts. Eggs are released in feces, washed into streams and puddles. There, a snail consumes them unknowingly and becomes a temporary host. Inside the snail, the parasite undergoes transformation. Then it exits, not directly, but through the snail's slime trail, where it waits, sticky, invisible on blades of grass. A grazing animal eats the grass. The fluke enters. It migrates to the liver, and the cycle begins again. There is no guiding intelligence behind these steps, only survival. Trial and error shaped into precision. Every stage depends on behavior, climate, coincidence. But it works, not because the parasite is clever, but because evolution is. Over time, it has written and rewritten itself into an organism that acts like a riddle, a biological poem of entrances and exits. The parasitic flatworm Leucochloridium infects snails, as we've seen. But its goal is not just to live, but to be seen. It travels to the snail's eye stalks, swells them with pulsating color, mimicking a caterpillar. Birds drawn by motion peck. The worm enters the bird's gut. It mates. Eggs are passed in droppings. Snails feed on them. The loop closes. What we see as grotesque is, for the parasite, simply geometry. Cause and effect, pattern, a biological algorithm. Even the toxoplasma parasite, one of the most widespread in the human population, has a code of its own. It needs to return to the cat to reproduce, so when it infects a rodent, it rewires the brain. The rat is no longer afraid of cats. In fact, it becomes drawn to their scent. It moves toward what should repel it. It dies. The parasite completes its cycle. It's a formula. One written not with numbers, but with behavior. In the ocean, some parasites infect crustaceans, making them swim higher in the water column, closer to birds. Not because they're suicidal, but because the parasite inside them benefits from avian digestion. One step leads to another. The parasite survives by convincing the host to change its place in the world. What's haunting is how often these strategies involve no direct interaction. The parasite does not whisper. It does not coerce. It shifts the body, and the body shifts the mind. Many parasites alter hormone levels, distort hunger, disrupt fear responses. They don't conquer, they guide, and not just in animals. Even plants have their manipulators. Some fungi infect crops, changing their scent to attract insects, which then carry the spores to new hosts. Others alter flowering time or root structure to give themselves an edge in spreading. The elegance is everywhere. In the thorny-headed worm, Acanthocephala, which moves from water to land through an insect intermediary. In the malaria parasite, which times its cycles to the feeding rhythms of its mosquito vector. In the tapeworm, which forgoes most organs entirely because it doesn't need them. It lives in digestion, so it becomes digestion. Each of these is a form of coding, not digital, not conscious, but no less powerful. A sequence of steps, selected and reinforced until what remains is function, smooth, strange, and brutally efficient. Even behavior itself becomes a kind of substrate. The parasite writes into instinct, into choice, into fear, and it raises a question. At what point does an organism stop being a life form and become something more like a process? When we design machines, we think in terms of algorithms, inputs, outputs, optimization. But nature has been doing that longer than we have. Parasites, viruses, even bacteria, all operate under invisible constraints. Their lives are shaped by bottlenecks. Their bodies become solutions. Some researchers describe these organisms as biological software, living, mutating code. Always adjusting, always compiling. But unlike our machines, they don't crash. They adapt. They rewire. They solve new hosts, new environments, new defenses, and we are often part of the puzzle they solve. The guinea worm exits through the skin not randomly, but because it needs to lay its eggs in water. So it triggers a burning pain, compelling the host to step into a stream. Relief for the human. Completion for the worm. The rabies virus causes aggression and fear of water, driving the host to bite, to spread. The body becomes a vehicle. The behavior becomes a delivery system. None of this is designed, but all of it is designed, not by mind, but by time. It's tempting to call this evil, to say these organisms are cruel, but cruelty requires intent. These beings don't know we exist. They only know what keeps them alive. They are riddles that answer themselves. And their success is staggering. By number, parasites outnumber free-living organisms. They're found in every ecosystem, every biome, every body. Some live in one host, others in 5. Some need a single bite to thrive. Others wait years for the moment to emerge. And their complexity is not decoration, it is survival. In them we see something uncanny. Life behaving like mathematics. Flesh acting like thought. A tick on a leaf may carry a solution. A worm in a fish may contain a pattern. A virus in a breath may rewrite a life. It is not chaos, it is not simplicity. It is biology as algorithm, not built by hand, but carved by time. We like to believe we are in control, that the world bends to our will, that our homes, our medicines, our machines form a kind of boundary, a thin but solid wall between us and the chaos beyond. But in truth, that wall is made of paper. We walk through sterilized corridors, past automatic doors and filtered air, believing we have built order. But the truth is older, quieter. We do not control nature. We navigate it, barely. The smallest things remind us. A tick in tall grass, a virus in a breath, a parasite in the water. They do not recognize our borders, our wealth, our plans. They do not pause at customs. They do not care if we are prepared. They arrive, sometimes unnoticed, sometimes too late. In the great illusion of human progress, we imagined ourselves rising above nature, apart from it. We paved it over, built towers, wired satellites, sequenced genomes, and yet a prion, a misfolded protein, can undo a life. A bacterium can unmake a city. A mosquito weighing less than a raindrop can steer history with its bite. We do not live apart from the invisible world. We live within it. Control is not something we hold. It is something we chase. A flickering illusion that flickers further the closer we think we've caught it. A single mutation, a skipped dose, a new host. And what we thought we understood becomes something else. A new strain, a new name, a new threat. It's not failure, it's nature. Even our cleanest spaces, hospitals, labs, sterile rooms are battlegrounds. We disinfect, we scrub, and still organisms adapt. Superbugs evolve, resistance blooms. The more we push, the more they shift. Not out of malice, but because life is pressure. And pressure creates change. They respond, so do we. But not always fast enough. And in that gap, the space between what we know and what we think we know, lives vulnerability. We fear large predators because we see them. Teeth, eyes, claws. But what changes us most, what humbles us most, is often what we cannot perceive. The tremble before a fever, the bruise with no cause, the slow erasure of memory. These things don't roar, they whisper, and in their quiet we are reminded, we are not alone, we are not in charge. Control as we imagine it is an illusion of comfort, a blanket against the dark. But the dark has always been there, teeming, breathing, replicating. The creatures we've explored in this journey, the parasites, the viruses, the silent dwellers of skin and water and breath, they do not seek to overthrow us. They simply are. Their purpose is survival, their weapon is subtlety, and their presence is constant. We lock our doors, wash our hands, vaccinate our children. These are not failures of control, they are acknowledgments of how porous we truly are, how close the world really is. And there is grace in that surrender. To recognize that we are not kings but participants, that we do not govern the system when we are part of it. A node, a breath, a flicker, it softens the ego, it clears the noise. Because when we let go of the myth, when we accept that safety is not a wall but a rhythm, a fragile agreement with the world around us, then we begin to see more clearly. We see the elegance of adaptation, the beauty of survival, the strange, cold poetry of biology. We see that control was never the point. Awareness was. Not all stories have heroes, not all threats are evil, and not all losses are defeats. Sometimes they're reminders that life continues without our permission, that the world turns whether we're watching or not, and that beneath the surface of everything we build, something older still moves, not against us but around us, through us, within us. We may not command it, but we can witness it. We can learn to listen, and in that listening, find something deeper than control, something quieter, something closer, something true. Not all things that kill are monstrous. Some shimmer, some glide through water like falling silk, trailing tendrils that paralyze. Some flash neon warnings in jungles, flashing impossible colors, electric blue, blood red, sun yellow. Some gleam with scales so fine they look like liquid metal in motion. And some are nearly invisible, transparent, delicate, like glass holding something ancient. There is a strange, still beauty in the most dangerous creatures of our world. A paradox the size of a fang, that what can kill you often captivates you first. The blue-ringed octopus, for example, it is small enough to fit in the palm of a hand. It doesn't chase, it doesn't lunge, instead it glows. When threatened, its skin ripples with glowing blue circles, not to hide but to warn. A living warning label, more beautiful than anything we could design. Its bite is almost painless. You may not know you've been marked until your breathing slows, until the ocean leans in. The iridescent cone snail moves slowly, patiently. It carries a shell that looks painted by light itself, brushed with swirls of pearl and amber, but inside is a harpoon, a venom cocktail designed not just to paralyze but to numb, to silence. The elegance of the shell hides a complexity of chemical warfare that researchers still study, still do not fully understand. And then there are the snakes, the coral, the viper, the mamba. Their movement is poetry, muscle and earth. Their colors, warnings and camouflage at once. No sound, only the rustle. No anger, only function. Their venom varies. Some thin the blood, some still the lungs. But all are built, refined, perfected over time. And yet we stare. We watch them in documentaries, photograph them in the wild, sculpt them into myth. Not in spite of their danger, but because of it. The deadly things are often the most precise. The box jellyfish is almost invisible underwater, a ghost of tissue and light. Its tentacles can stretch for meters, each lined with stinging cells that deliver one of the most painful venoms known to humankind. But it does not attack. It simply drifts. A ribbon in the current, a shimmer. The poison dart frogs of South America are stunning. Their colors are electric. Blue as flame, yellow as gold, red like the inside of a wound. They are not hiding. Their skin carries alkaloids harvested from the insects they eat, transformed into toxin. Enough to kill birds, mammals, sometimes even humans. Yet we name them after jewels. The Irukandji jellyfish, smaller than a fingernail, causes symptoms so excruciating that survivors describe an overwhelming sense of doom, the certainty of death, even when it never comes. But to look at one is to see nothing more than a crystal drifting, a flicker, These creatures don't roar, they don't snarl, they don't warn in the ways we're used to. They dazzle, and that perhaps is part of the mystery, the contradiction that draws us in. Because in the human mind, beauty and safety are often intertwined. We expect danger to be ugly, but the natural world doesn't care for such categories. The beautiful can be deadly, the deadly can be silent, the silent can be right beside you. Some insects, like the orchid mantis, mimic flowers, pale pinks, delicate limbs. They blend into blossoms not to avoid being eaten, but to eat. Pollinators come too close, and in a flash of motion, beauty becomes function, color becomes death. Even the caterpillar of the Lonomia moth, a soft, green, unassuming creature, carries venom that disrupts the blood's ability to clot. A single brush of its bristles can cause internal bleeding. But from a distance, it's gentle, innocent. Like part of the plant itself, there is no malevolence in any of it, only precision, purpose, pattern. We are drawn to it the way we're drawn to fire, not foolishly but instinctively. The mind wants to understand what the heart cannot. Why something so elegant can also kill. And then perhaps the question turns, why shouldn't it? Why shouldn't survival take on beauty? Why shouldn't evolution dress efficiency in iridescence? A predator doesn't need to be brutal. It can be silent. Software drenched in color, laced with elegance. And when we encounter them, in forests, in water, in the quiet edges of our homes, we feel something deeper than fear. We feel awe. Because deep down, part of us recognizes what these creatures represent. A world that is not built for us yet surrounds us. A world of systems older than language, older than comfort. A world where grace and danger are the same. So the next time you see a spider's legs shimmer with dew in morning light, or a snake's scales ripple like flowing oil, or a dragonfly hover, still and jeweled, in a beam of sun, know this: beauty is not always a gift. Sometimes it is a warning, and sometimes it is both. There is a quiet design to the wild, one that doesn't rely on peace but balance. And often what keeps that balance are the very creatures we fear most. The deadly ones, the venomous, the parasitic, the invisible. The ones we call dangerous, invasive, hostile. But they are not out of place. They are not mistakes in the system, they are the system. Their roles are not accidents. They are anchors. Take the spider. It evokes fear in millions, and yet it is one of the most effective regulators of insect populations on Earth. In a single year, spiders consume more insects than the biomass of the entire human population. They keep crops alive. They keep disease vectors down. They shape the very rhythm of the ecosystems we depend on. Remove the spider and watch imbalance unfold. The same is true for snakes, often killed on sight, feared by instinct. They are essential predators in countless food chains. They control rodents, animals that left unchecked would strip fields, spread plague, gnaw through the roots of human civilization. A single snake can consume thousands of pests in its lifetime. It does not need to be beloved, it simply needs to exist. Even parasites, perhaps the most reviled life forms on Earth, have roles. They are not chaos, they are pressure. In fish populations, they regulate strength, targeting the sick, the slow, the genetically unfit. In doing so, they ensure that only the strongest breed. They are selective forces, quiet culls, shapers of evolution. In forest soil, nematodes kill off invasive bacteria. In the gut, certain viruses, bacteriophages, target harmful microbes acting like internal gardeners. These are not accidents. They are not interruptions. They are part of the design. When we remove predators from an ecosystem, wolves from a forest, sharks from a reef, we often expect peace. What we get is collapse. Deer overgraze, rivers erode, vegetation disappears. Fish populations explode, then starve. Danger is not the opposite of order. It is part of it. Even venom has a role beyond the kill. Many venomous creatures use their toxins sparingly, not to destroy, but to defend. Bees sting to protect the hive. Cone snails envenom only when necessary. Some snakes even deliver dry bites, a warning without harm. It is economy, precision, a dialogue in biology's oldest language. The coral reef, vibrant, delicate, is built by competition as much as cooperation. Fish with barbed fins, tentacles that sting, nudibranchs that borrow poison from what they eat. And yet, it thrives. Not because it is safe, but because every danger has a counterbalance. And within that balance, life blooms. The mosquito, carrier of disease, also feeds countless species, birds, bats, amphibians. Remove it completely and the web tugs loose. The solution is never removal. It is awareness, management, harmony. Because nature does not think in good or evil. It does not punish. It does not protect. It balances. Even in our bodies, the most dangerous organisms play quiet roles. Certain strains of E. coli live peacefully in our guts. Some only become deadly when displaced or mutated. Others help regulate digestion, build immunity, even protect against worse infections. It is proximity, not presence, that changes their nature. Everything in the right place at the right level has function. We often think of ecosystems as fragile, but they are resilient because of this built-in tension. The sting keeps distance, the predator keeps peace, the parasite checks excess, and the system endures. Where we see risk, nature sees rhythm. A frog's bright color is a signal, not just to predators but to mates. A wasp's aggression protects pollination. The scavenger's hunger cleans the land. Nothing is idle, nothing is wasted, even decay has purpose. Maggots, bacteria, carrion beetles, they turn death back into life. They ensure that nothing lingers too long. They make room, they feed the soil, and the soil feeds the roots. And the roots carry the memory upward, into forests, into fruit, into breath. There is a kind of grace in this unspoken agreement, that life will feed on life, that beauty will carry danger, that even the most painful sting is part of something larger. It's easy to think of humans as separate, to build walls, to pave roads, to call ourselves civilized. But we are not outside the web. We are nodes in it. When we act without regard, poisoning the insects, killing the snakes, purging the microbes, we disrupt more than we understand. And when we learn to live with, not against, balance returns. The predators come back. The prey find new patterns, the rivers clear, the forests breathe. We do not have to love the deadly creatures, but we must learn to respect them, because their danger is not a flaw. It is part of the frame. So the next time a spider webs the corner of a room, or a snake slides through a garden, or a bee hums near your hand, pause. You are not under threat. You are near a guardian of balance, a keeper of rhythm, a participant in a system older than thought. In that still moment, you might feel it, not fear, but recognition. That danger is not always destruction. Sometimes it is design. Before we learn to speak, before we learn to write, we learn to fear. Not through stories, not through culture, but through pattern, carved into bone, wired into nerve, etched across the folds of the brain like tide lines in stone. It begins in the body, the tightening of the gut, the prickle on the back of the neck, the flinch before thought. Why does a curled shape on the path make the heart race? Why do 8 legs in a dark corner feel like a threat before we know what they are? These reactions are not learned. They are inherited. They are memory, not of events, but of survival. When we recoil from a spider, we are not responding to its bite. Most will never harm us. We are responding to the echo, the ancient tension between humans and the world of venom and sting. Somewhere in the long shadow of our evolution, the shape of a spider came to mean, be careful, stay still. This may end badly. The same is true of snakes. Across cultures, across continents, even among people who have never seen one, there is a nearly universal fear, or at least a heightened awareness. The sudden hush, the instinctive scan, the heart skipping just slightly. In infants, studies show a preference for looking longer at snake shapes than at flowers, not out of fascination, but wariness, a memory before memory. This is not superstition, it is adaptation. Because for most of human history, danger was not loud. It did not roar. It crept. It hissed. It waited in the underbrush. Those who noticed it lived. Those who didn't were forgotten. Fear kept us alive, and, over time, it became part of us. But fear in nature is not constant. It is situational. A bird fears a hawk, but not always. A deer bolts at a noise but grazes again minutes later. Fear comes and goes like a tide. In humans, it lingers. We carry it into places where it no longer belongs. Into sterile rooms, into bright cities, into screens and headlines and dreams. We fear things we've never touched, because our bodies remember. But there is more than just survival in this memory. There is wisdom. There is awareness. Fear tells us we are not the only force in the world. It reminds us that the world is older, wilder, sharper than our comforts allow. It keeps us listening. It slows our steps in the dark. It teaches us to see, truly see, in what shares this earth with us. And sometimes fear protects more than ourselves. We fear the sting of a wasp, so we leave its nest intact. We fear the bite of a snake, so we walk around the log. We fear the spider in the corner, so we pause and notice and maybe choose not to crush it. Fear creates space. Space creates coexistence. Even irrational fears, the ones we cannot explain, come from this deeper logic. They are not flaws. They are messages written in a language older than words. But there is danger, too, in forgetting this origin. In letting fear grow unchecked, in letting it become disgust or hatred or violence. When we fear blindly, we destroy, we eradicate, we overcorrect, and we remove the very creatures that once kept us safe. The goal is not to erase fear. The goal is to understand it, to sit with it, to learn its shape, to ask not only what we fear, but why. Because sometimes fear is just a signal that we are brushing up against something important, something ancient, something powerful. And in that stillness, just after the startle, there is a choice: to react, or to reflect, to kill, or to learn. The mind can override instinct if gently. The child afraid of bees can grow into the gardener. The person frozen at the sight of a spider can grow into a keeper of their webs. And in that process, we don't lose our ancient memory. We honor it. Because fear at its core is love wearing armor. It is care hardened by time. It is the body's way of saying you matter enough to protect. So let it speak, but do not let it rule. We are no longer prey in the grass. We are watchers, witnesses, neighbors. The things we fear most may be the things we most need to understand. And sometimes, beneath the pulse and the breath and the tension, that fear begins to feel like reverence. There is something watching, but it has no eyes. Not a predator in the dark, not a god in the clouds, but something quieter, older, less focused on us and more surrounding us. It is the world itself, not sentient in the way we imagine, not peering through branches or whispering through walls, but present, attentive. Every surface, every breath, every inch of air is filled with life. Not looking at us but existing with us. And in that closeness, something ancient stirs. We were never truly alone. Every moment we live, we are entangled, when with microbes on our skin, mites in our pillows, spores in the air. We inhale them, we exhale them. The veil between self and world is thinner than we think. The boundary we draw between the body and everything else was always imaginary. What watches us is the system we belong to. The moss growing unseen between bricks. The fungus threading through forest roots. The fly waiting on the windowsill. The bacteria resting on a fallen spoon. There is no malice in it, only presence. When we walk into a room and sense something, that hush, that awareness, it may not be imagination. It may be the body remembering its place inside a larger web, a world that doesn't pause for us but wraps around us regardless. What if the world is always noticing, not watching like a storybook creature but registering, shifting slightly, reacting, adapting, folding us into its constant thrum, noticing our heat, our motion, our scent, just as we notice a shadow, a chill, the whisper of wind against the neck. Even the stones are not lifeless. Even the dust moves. What seems still is only slow. What seems silent is only speaking in a different scale. The deadly creatures we've followed through this journey. The spiders in the corners, the snakes in the weeds, the parasites in the blood. They do not exist apart from the world. They are the world. And so are we. Our steps are recorded in pollen shifts, in the migration of mites, in the flicker of viral load across a city. The cells of our bodies, touched by microbial guests, tell a story not entirely our own. The world doesn't need eyes to see us. It feels us, it holds us, it reshapes around us. And when we go, when the breath stills and the heartbeat slows, we do not leave it. We are reclaimed by it. Fed back into the soil, carried into roots, consumed, translated, dissolved into language the body never learned but always knew. Every breath is an exchange. We take in the air that trees exhale. We touch surfaces touched by countless other lives. We are brushed by wind that passed through feathers, through fur, through the lungs of deer. We are haunted, not by spirits but by the living. By what crawls beneath bark and moves under floorboards and floats just above the skin. And yet, it is not a haunting of fear. It is belonging. We are not the center. We are a ripple. And that should bring peace. Because when we understand that we are not a part, that there is no true outside of nature, the need for control softens. The illusion of dominance dissolves. What we called wilderness is not out there. It is here. It is in us. What watches without eyes is the sum of everything that's been here all along. The invisible balance of host and guest, the rhythm of hunger and healing, the slow drift of pollen and parasite, the hum behind the heartbeat. We look into the forest and see faces in the leaves. We hear patterns in the night and wonder who walks beside us. But perhaps it is not who. Perhaps it is what. And perhaps it has always been. Now close your eyes. Let your body sink. Let the weight of the day slip quietly toward the floor. And listen, not to what is loud, but to what hums beneath everything. Out there in the world beyond your walls, life continues. The wild never stops moving. Even now, as you lie still, it breathes beside you. In the grasses, small creatures stir, not with urgency, but with rhythm. Moths tapping against leaves, spiders repairing their webs, ants charting invisible roads beneath the soil, not hostile, not curious, simply alive. You are not outside this world. You are within it, even as you sleep. A mouse scurries along a kitchen wall, soft-footed, barely audible. A tick waits patiently on a blade of grass. A moth, dust-winged and silent, brushes past the glass of a window pane. Not one of them knows your name. Not one of them means you harm. They simply exist, as you do. There's no need to push them away in your mind. No need to armor yourself in thoughts of safety or sterility. You are already safe. You always were. Because what surrounds you isn't threat, it's continuity. Even the creatures we call deadly, the scorpion beneath a stone, the snake curled in dry leaves, the mosquito that hums near a river. They are part of the same pattern. They move through their nights just as you move through yours. Not with cruelty, but with purpose. They seek, they feed, they rest. The same cycles, the same moon. And when you sleep, you drift into that same dark ocean where boundaries dissolve and time slows. You are no longer entirely here. You are not entirely elsewhere. You are simply drifting. Imagine your breath joining the rhythm of the forest, your heartbeat echoing faintly beneath layers of earth. Imagine your body glowing softly in the minds of microbes, a presence, a warmth, a brief and beautiful flare. You are not alone. You never have been. Even when the room feels still, you are surrounded by motion too slow, too small, too soft to name. The dust settling, the cells repairing, the moonlight falling gently through the trees outside. Sleep is not absence, it is invitation. The body does not disappear when you close your eyes. It surrenders. It lets the world carry it, gently, silently, like a leaf on the surface of a pond. And the world is kind enough to carry it. Outside, owls blink in darkness. Fungi bloom and fade underground. Frogs call to one another through the mist. Somewhere, a jellyfish pulses upward in a black sea, unaware of time. And you, tucked beneath blankets, soft as breath, are part of it all. The wild is not waiting to hurt you. It is singing you to sleep. In 1,000 voices you cannot hear. In languages older than language. In rhythms older than fear. You are not lying beside danger. You are lying beside memory, beside design, beside life. Let that be enough. Let the soft knowledge of the world's movement be your lullaby. Let it pass around you and through you like the wind through pine needles, like light through water. There is no need to hold it. It holds you. There is no need to understand it. It understands you. Even as you forget the shape of this room, even as your thoughts dissolve into images, even as the night takes you, the wild remains. It moves gently around you and it asks nothing in return. There is a space that exists only for a moment, a pause so brief it goes unnoticed, the quiet between heartbeats. It is not silence, not really. It is a lull. A soft suspension, the body waiting, the world listening. You are drifting there now, not in the beginning, not in the end, just somewhere in the middle, where breath slows and thought unravels, where even fear lets go of its shape. The deadly creatures we've whispered about, the ones with glistening fangs and invisible threads, they have not disappeared. They are still moving just beyond the edges of knowing, just beyond the reach of light, not hiding, not threatening, just being. They always were, in the cracks of old walls, in the warmth beneath floorboards, in the rivers that wind through forgotten valleys, in the marrow of bones, in the hush of leaves turning in the night. We never needed to go find them. They were already beside us. Sleeping under the same stars, breathing the same air, living their brief, strange lives just as we live ours. And in some quiet way, that's a comfort, that the world continues even without our attention, that nature doesn't stop to wait for us, that mystery doesn't vanish when we turn away. Because there are questions that don't need answers. There are shadows that don't need light, and there is knowledge in letting some things remain unknown. Perhaps it's not important to understand every venom, every fang, every ancient pattern carved into a genome. Perhaps it's enough to know they are out there, still moving, still adapting, still waiting in the rhythm of life. like the soft pulse of something deep beneath the ocean, like the flutter of wings in a tree we'll never climb, like the virus that drifts through the wind unnoticed, like the dream that fades before we can speak it aloud. There is no neat ending, no resolution, because this story doesn't end. It doesn't want to. It only wants to be felt. The hush of it, the stillness, the vastness that sits gently behind every wall, beneath every floor, just under the skin of everything we think we know. That is where these creatures live, not only in the forests and seas and cells, but in our imagination, in our myth, in the tingling moment before sleep where we wonder what else might be watching, listening, waiting. And in that wondering, we come closest to the truth. Not with facts, but with feeling. The world is not waiting to be conquered, it is waiting to be noticed. So rest now, not in victory but in recognition, that you are part of something older, stranger, quieter than you can name, something that lives in the spaces between sight and sound, between waking and dreaming, between one breath and the next, and there in that breathless space, the quiet between heartbeats, everything continues, without us, with us, always.